Hey, welcome to the 429th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I often do look backs at classic comic books to see how they were. Or I've been doing like what if comics from like the 80s, like the classic what if comics. It was really something. I feel like it was something different back then because it was a little more original. I also from time to time do random off of mind topics, and I haven't decided this week if we're due for another off of mind. So it might be. I have an idea. I don't know if it's something that I've kind of beaten to death already. So we'll see. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or four. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. All right, what do we have on this week's episode? The movie feature is The Running Man, based off the Stephen King story. Great. Directed by Edgar Wright. Great, right? Starring Glen Powell. Okay, some people like him. So we'll talk about that movie. Yeah. We also have new show this week. We got Pluribus. So this is the new show by from creator Vince Gilligan, who did Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, amongst other things. And so it's an Apple TV Plus show. As I record this, 3 episodes are out. So the new episodes come out Friday, and last week, whatever, first 2 episodes dropped. Second week, the third one dropped. So we're gonna be like an episode behind. We're gonna cover episodes 1 and 2. We're gonna do a double episode this week. So do 1 and 2. We also have another Welcome to Derry. I don't know what I was gonna say. And we'll have another Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake. That show is just so bizarre. And comics in the news. So let's get started with some news. Speaking of Running Man, I'll say this right now. I could save this for later. It doesn't look like there's going to be a Running Man 2. It's I'll talk specifically about the box office later. We'll look that up. But it's doesn't look like it's doing that great. And I be honest, when I watched it, I didn't even think about there'd be a sequel. And maybe because the original story there's not a sequel, or the original movie there wasn't a sequel. I wouldn't expect there to be a Running Man 2, but obviously they could easily do a sequel. Once you've created this world, we could see more and see what's next and all that. Yeah, but that's probably not going to happen. And I don't know if Edgar Wright would want to do another sequel, or I don't know. I haven't heard or read anything about his thoughts on this, but there's definitely I feel like, and I don't know anything about this, but I feel like he approached this movie differently than how he normally does. Speaking about Edgar Wright, there was I forget if it was on Reddit or something like that, where someone, I think it was like a Ask Me Anything type of thing, and someone wanted to know about Ant-Man. It's like, okay, why did you really leave Ant-Man? What happened with that? Basically, what he said is, I forget who he worked on it with, but they had a script that they really liked. They were really attached, and I think they had started working on it before Iron Man even came out. So they had this idea of what they were going to do, but then as things started moving along, and then all the continuity and stuff like that, their original vision started getting more and more. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think he said diluted, but it was getting further away from what they were originally doing. So then he's just like, yeah, I don't think this is for me anymore. And I get that, because if that's the thing. If you were going to do a Marvel movie, there are some constraints, because the luxury of it, it's built into this big shared universe, and that in a lot of ways can be a plus because you have like a built-in audience. People are like, okay, and it's not so much now as it used to be, but it used to be, okay, what's the next Marvel universe? And people, boom, I don't know who Guardians of the Galaxy are. Let's go see it. It's something to do with Marvel. Okay, great, more Marvel, more Marvel. So you kind of get that advantage there. But the downside is you are kind of limited with certain things, and you can only do like, oh, I'm gonna blow up, the Washington Monument or whatever, but maybe you can't do that because it plays an important part in the next movie or whatever's, something like that. So there's definitely some restrictions, and one of the things that I guess I kind of get in a way, but apparently he's never watched the original Ant-Man. He's never seen the Ant-Man movie to this day. So he was supposed to do it, and he's not going to do it, and he's just like, well, I'm never going to watch it. That just seems weird. I can see that he was so committed to what he wanted to do. He had this vision, he's excited and everything. It didn't happen, so then someone else did something. I feel like I would be curious about that. I talking about comic buying. I don't really go to comic buying anymore because it's not. One, I don't have the time for that, and it's a whole other thing. I did go there because a creator there was some like creator credits, something that wasn't getting edited. So I was like, well, I can, I still have edit access, and this is something it's inaccurate in the database. It should be, not that I'm have any. What am I looking for? I have no connection, no game, no. What's horse in the race? What am I looking for? I hate when I do this. I just blink out on what I'm trying to say. But I have nothing invested in a site anymore. It's done. I still, part of me still wants a database to be accurate. I don't use it, but a lot of creators do use that as, hey, these are the books that I've worked on, and they can kind of use it as not necessarily their resume, but just to keep track for themselves that that's what they've done. But at the same point, let's say, so all the time and energy and everything that I've invested in Comic Vine, if all of a sudden someone or whoever owns it now, they're like, okay, we're going to completely redo the site. We got this new vision. We're going to do all this and everything. I would probably be curious to see, like, hey, what are you going to do? This is what we used to do. Now, how do you see that? And I'd be curious. It's like, okay, that's cool, or I really don't like that. I think what we had was better. You would at least be curious about that. So I feel like it's weird that but at the same time, Edgar Wright was so committed that maybe it's just you don't want to do that, or maybe he just doesn't care. I mean, I don't know. He's gotten to the point where maybe he's like, okay, I want to do this superhero movie. I can't do it anymore because of just everything that comes along with it. It just, I don't know. To me, it just seems weird to just completely say, okay, I want nothing to do with it. But there you go. The Wrap said that the Man of Tomorrow villain is going to be Brainiac. And I think a lot of people suspected this anyways. We had a slight tease, but I guess Brainiac's coming to town and Lex and Superman have to team up. And it's like, okay, here we go. So, I understand why you want to have Superman and Lex, and yeah, them teaming up does kind of change things. After seeing Lex in Peacemaker Season 2, it's like, I don't know. And apparently Frank Grillo is going to have a big role. And after Peacemaker Season 2, I don't care to see him again. I just do not like his character. So, yeah, we'll see about that. Oh, what about Zack Snyder? I shouldn't even talk about this. Apparently, I missed this, but Zack Snyder on Veterans Day, he decided to post a picture of Henry Cavill Superman. And I think he's been doing this on Instagram. So I don't know if he's new to Instagram, because I did see that he posted a picture of Ben Affleck Batman, like in bat armor. And apparently he wrote something like, "I'm just getting started." And he's like, "Thanks for 300K, these past 6 weeks have been great," or something like that. So I'm just getting started. What is he getting started? Posting like random things about a project that he did how many years ago now? And he's trying to get people to keep hanging on to there's nothing there. Some people are like, well, maybe he's doing this because of the speculation that with the Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever, if they sell it off, someone might want to do something. I find it hard to accept that it's one thing that, let's say whatever, something happens and then Paramount or Netflix or whoever buys Warner Brothers, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna bring back the Snyderverse, and hey, Zach, you want to do this now? And you'd be like, yeah, I've been waiting. That's why I'm posting all these pictures, because I want people to care about what I did. But at the same time, does Henry Cavill want to do it anymore? Does Gal Gadot? Does Ben Affleck? It seemed like Ben Affleck, he just seems like very like, like I'm done. I don't want to put the suit on again. It's so uncomfortable and everything. So to get everyone involved to come back, and plus the fact that they're all getting older, and which it's not that big of a deal, because you could always adjust for that, especially if they want to do this apocalyptic whatever future weird thing. But you're also saying if they're going to do this, if they're going to say, let's bring the Snyderverse back, I would imagine, okay, we have to invest a lot of money into this. So they're not just going to do like a one-off movie. That would seem silly. If you're going to bring back this universe, wouldn't you want to try to continue to build on that? If you're going to bring this back and then Henry Cavill's like, yeah, I'll come back, I'll do another movie, but does anyone at this point want to commit to it? Because they committed at one point and then things didn't work out. So it's like, would you really want to commit a second time with the possibility of getting burned or whatever? And that also locks up your schedule, where you might have to limit other things that you want to do. I could be wrong. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous to think that there could ever continue. Maybe they could, Zack Snyder's can come back. He might have to recast. If he recast, would people still be willing to accept that? I mean, are they into the Snyderverse because it's Zack Snyder, his writing and directing or whatever, in slow motion? Or is it because of Henry Cavill? Because a lot of times I always, people are like, oh, Henry Cavill's the best Superman and this, whatever. Or, Ben Affleck. Or so I don't know. If Zack Snyder's just posting these random, and the Batman picture, it kind of looked like the sad Batman picture that was posted originally. It just looks like it's like a cropped version of that. It almost like, yeah, I could be wrong, but it almost looks like, I haven't like studied and memorized the original one, but it kind of looked like, his head kind of down. I don't even know if his head can move in that armor. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. There's more on this Hunt for Ben Solo stuff. So people are really, really getting invested in this. We've seen like flyers getting put up, people kind of doing sort of like, not necessarily protests, but like doing these things. The latest is someone paid money, or several someone's paid money to have a plane fly over Burbank, over like the Disney studio, with a big banner at the end saying, shareholders want the Hunt for Ben Solo. So it's like, do they really? I mean, who are they talking about shareholders? Are they saying, okay, I subscribe to Disney Plus, so I'm a shareholder, I'm invested in this, I'm putting my money into it, so my dividend would be quality entertainment? I don't know if it works quite that way, but I mean, I would be down for it, but I mean, I'm not going to protest or anything about it, so we'll see. Street Fighter, I don't know anything about a Street Fighter movie. I feel like a lot of times it's like, how do I miss out on so much? But there's apparently a Street Fighter movie coming out, and it possibly, maybe people are speculating that it wrapped filming. So again, this is all news to me, but there's like an image of like the clacker, what's that thing called? And so I maybe it's wrapped. I hope it's good. I don't know if anyone I know is in it, but we'll see. There was a trailer for Fallout Season 2. So that's coming out December 17th. And apparently it sounds like it's still going one episode per week, like with the last episode airing on February 4th. That I think is amazing. And it makes sense for the streamers. You want these shows to last. If someone's like, I want to watch Fallout, I will subscribe to watch Fallout, then string them along for 10 weeks. You have them locked in for 10 weeks that they have to subscribe, if they want it. Or sure, they can wait until all the episodes drop and then subscribe and then binge and then cancel or whatever. And I said this before, it's the same thing. If you want something, or what, I'm not going to go into it. But if you want to binge everything, you can wait till it all airs. I feel like I just said that. There's also a trailer that was released for Monarch: Legacy of Monsters Season 2. So I'm excited about this because I'm trying to remember, when did they announce the Season 2? For the longest time, it's like there's no word about this, and then all of a sudden it's like, yep, it's happening. So we got a trailer. That's great, and it's going to be a 10-episode season. It's gonna it sounds like they're doing one. They might only be doing one per week. That's what I'm hearing. I'm reading, because usually they'll drop like 2 or maybe 3. But it's like, no, don't even do that. Just drop one, and make people want to come back. Make it a very strong first episode, strong cliffhanger ending. People need to come back for that, and that's what I'll talk about this with Pluribus. After yes, they dropped 2 episodes, but after that first episode, I'm like, holy crap, I want to see more. And yeah, I watched I think the next one the next day. If I had to wait a week, that's fine. I mean, I wanted more, and it's not like oh man, I can't wait a week. What? Forget it. I'm not going to watch the show. Who does that? No one. So Monarch, February 27th, we have that. That's going to be interesting. There's also a trailer for Super Mario Galaxy. I literally watched that like maybe 10, 15 minutes ago. I totally forgot about it. I saw it when it came up. I was like, yeah, I'll watch that later. For Super Mario Galaxy, so I'm not familiar with the game. I don't really know. But to me, it's like Super Mario Galaxy is this something with space? We kind of see some little space, but it's like, no, there's no space. As I'm watching this, I'm like, maybe I don't know as much about Mario as I thought. And maybe I'm just like old school, like I don't know, I was there at the beginning, but yeah, I didn't play every single game that came after that, so I don't know all the details. But it starts off, you see like Bowser's painting. It's like, oh, here we go again. Bowser in love with Princess Peach. It's just like, I don't really care about that. And then there's a Bowser Jr. It's like, did I not know that? I don't know if I knew that. If I did, I must have forgotten about that. And like, again, I don't know if there's much about the galaxy. But then there's a Princess Rosalina. So I will admit, I don't know who Princess Rosalina is. And I have no idea what she's from. So again, maybe here I was like, yeah, I know about Mario, Super Mario Brothers, Mario 2, and I know there's Water Worlds and Dungeons and Mario Karts and all these people. But I guess, I don't know if they've named them. Is Princess Rosalina one of? No, sorry, Mario, our princess is in another castle or whatever. I don't know. I don't care for Jack Black as Bowser. I don't care for Chris Pratt as Mario. And like when you hear them speak, it's so obvious, and it pulls me out of it. And I always talk about how I enjoy physical media, and I really buy the movies I like. Just of the visuals, I mean, they look so great. It's like I would love to have like Super Mario Brothers in my library, whatever. I just haven't been able to bring myself to buy it because of those aspects. It's like I don't want to pay $30 for whatever dollars for, because of course I'm going to buy Steelbook if I'm going to get it. I can't see myself paying this movie because that stuff just bothers me. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure when this comes out, I will see it unless there's like 5 other movies opening that weekend. Werewolf by Night is apparently getting a follow-up. It's actually happening. So Michael Giacchino, so he does a lot of music. He did music for Lost. He did music for Fantastic Four. He did music for Werewolf by Night. But he also, I'm pretty sure he directed. I don't know if he wrote and directed. But I guess we're going to get another Werewolf by Night at some point. So that's great. Alien Earth was finally renewed for season 2. They finally announced that was happening. So that makes sense. The Simpsons, the 800th episode, has been scheduled for February 15th, 2025. So it has finally reached 800 episodes. That's crazy. That's a lot. And I haven't really been watching. I did try watching some of the Treehouse of Horror from, I think it was 2024, and it was not. It seemed like it seemed kind of weird. There was an episode about, it was like a Venom parody, but it was called Denim. And so here's the thing. I started showing it in my classroom on Halloween, and there's a part where like Homer and Marge, because they're like dating, they're not married or whatever, because this is a different story, different telling. And at that point, they're like on the couch making out, and Marge is like trying to pull his pants off. I don't think we need to see that. We've seen Homer and Marge lying in bed at night, and maybe we'll see them smooching, but I don't think anyone should want to see Marge trying to pull Homer's pants off while they're making out on the couch. It seems wrong, and it seems unnecessary. We don't need to see that. And if you want to see that, okay, but no. So 800th episode, it's like, yeah, that's awesome, that's great. Am I going to watch it? I don't know, because from every time I see like a newish clip, it almost feels like it has a different vibe. And that kind of bums me out. There is apparently possibly a V for Vendetta HBO Max series happening. Okay, I guess do it right, and it makes sense. With now, are they just gonna like tell the story, or because like with Watchmen, that was totally different. It's not like, oh, we're gonna retell the Watchmen story and extend it or something like that. They just took it totally different. And V for Vendetta, I would think that they would want to tell the story of the graphic novel, or it's weird to call it a graphic novel. It's a comic. And because I don't know if you could tell the story like years later or whatever. So we have that. So Alan Moore will hate it, of course. I feel like sometimes I think that's why they do this. But James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to be like executive producing or something. So hopefully that will be great. Death Stranding. I've never played it. I love Hideo Kojima. I have so much respect for him. He's brilliant. He's amazing. They're making a Death Stranding animated show. Okay, that sounds cool. It's going to be on Disney Plus. I was like, what? So, okay. And I think the reason he's doing animated because so you can reach a bigger audience. I don't know. There's probably some reasons for it. And it just seems like it might be easier to do animated because then you don't, I don't know if it's cheaper in some ways, but also, yeah, you don't have to worry about, if you're going to cast someone to do the voice, it doesn't matter if they age or whatever, because, so we'll see. And I believe the last bit of news is we might be seeing more from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So the creator, he got the rights back to Who Framed Roger Rabbit and all that. So the author, he had a deal with Disney. It was like a 35-year clause or contract where apparently after 35 years the rights could revert back to him. And as this was happening, he was like, okay, this is coming, and it's probably going to get messy because Disney's going to want it and all stuff like that. But apparently he said they were very civil and very courteous, and he's like, they always treated me well, which is nice to hear. That's great that they weren't like evil corporate and just like using him in that. But they're like yep, okay, there you go, and he was ready to go get sticky. It didn't. So they're like, there you go. So the big question is, what does that mean for like Toontown at Disneyland? Can they still have it? Maybe do they have to license it now? Maybe they have to pay him. I don't know, because it's, even though it's not that big of a deal, I feel like it should be there. And even though I haven't been to Disneyland in so long, so I don't know. But apparently we are going to see more Roger Rabbit stuff. I think the writer is like in his 80s. I thought he was like 84 or something like that. And now I've never read it or anything, but apparently the original story is kind of different than the Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie. And I think he wrote a story the last few years called "What Jessica Rabbit Get or Serious" with like an X or something, and there may be there's talk of wanting to do a Jessica Rabbit live action movie. Okay, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And he was saying that he'd like to work with some of the same creators, but like Steven Spielberg. I don't know if they're available, interested. And he wants to get like the same. He would like to get the same voice actor for Roger, which that would be great. So we'll have to see. And we'll have to see what's next. There's plenty more, but that is going to be the news for the week. With comic books, I don't think I read anything from the other publishers. I don't know if there's anything that came out. At Image, we had Transformers number 26. I tried reading this. I read most of it. And, so it's Robert Kirkman's, Dan Mora, great creative team. I don't know. I'm having a hard time caring about this war between the Autobots and the Decepticon. And it feels like it's been going on for a while, but it's always going to be going on. Part of the problem is, some I think there's like injuries on both sides, and the fact that they're stranded on Earth and the limited resources. But like the Autobots, they have like a Decepticon that was captured that apparently like Megatron and the others, they kind of used him to power up like this computer or something like that. And they're like, well, we need to save him even though he's the enemy type of thing. And so we have some stuff like that. And then General Flag from G.I. Joe, he's like been hanging out talking to him. And I'm like, where did this come from? I feel like I'm missing something. And it's so possible, so likely that I'm missing stuff. But I feel like I didn't think the government like really knew about Transformers so much. Because we're seeing, I believe it's Clutch in the G.I. Joe comic, or whatever, not the Real American Hero, the Larry Hama one, but I believe it was Clutch who was driving a Jeep that turned out to be a Transformers, and they're kind of keeping it a secret. So I felt like G.I. Joe in general isn't aware about this. And I also thought that Duke was there when this fight started in the town in the early issues of the Transformer comics. He was in like a fighter jet, whatever, with some, I think there's two planes, and one of them got shot down or something, and so one of his buddies died. So he sees these Transformers, but then no one believes him or something like that, and they're gonna like lock him up because they think he's crazy. But he's like, I saw these robots and they did all the stuff, and then later they're like, hey, you want to join G.I. Joe? But just don't talk about those robots. So it's like, wait, so no one knows about it, but General Flag knows. And then there's like some other government people are like doing some sketchy things. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, so that was a Transformer. I don't know. And maybe I'm just not that big of a Transformers fan, which I guess, that's fine. It doesn't have to be for everyone. Speaking of G.I. Joe, I believe G.I. Joe Real American Hero 322 came out. I did not read that, so I'll need to get caught up on that. There was Redcoat number 15. And with this, the first thing is like, wait, did I read issue 14? And if I read issue 14, it feels like it's been a while since it's come out. It feels like it's been more than 4 weeks or 5 weeks. I could be wrong about that. But what happens here, I forget where it starts. If it's 1908, I don't know if that's the right date or not. But Simon, he's living like a normal life. And he's going by, he's not Simon Pure. I think he's calling himself Simon Plum. And I don't know if it's a spoiler, but he's basically, it's like he's settling down type of thing. And it's like, wait, what is going on here? This can't last. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And I dig the book. And that was it from Image. At Marvel, we had 1776, number 1. So this is where I'm realizing I really don't know my American history that much, because obviously 1776, that's when we became a nation, right? But one of the things they talk about, and this book is called 1776, but then it's taking place after. We're like in 1777, and like they're talking about the Battle of Saratoga. So the Battle of Saratoga was September 19th. Let's see, wait. The battles of Saratoga were fought September 19th, October 7th, 1777. So this is stuff that happened over a year later. And anyway, so what's going on here is, I don't know if I should mention who. Someone has gone back in time, is like messing with things. Basically wants to make it that the United States isn't a nation, because apparently that's going to have a trickle effect to do other things. So some heroes are going to have to go back in time to try to assist with certain things. So it's like I find that interesting, that it's not quite like 1602, where it's like, oh, let's take the Marvel characters and place them in a different era and pretend that that's, they were always there. But no, it's actually taking modern day Avengers and putting back in time. So yeah, there's just some interesting things there. Amazing Spider-Man Torn. So this is also a J. Michael Straczynski book. This is for this book, part of me was, I guess the question is like, why do we get this book? I'm enjoying it, surprisingly, because normally I'm not a fan of these like totally random, out of context, whatever. But we have Peter, Harry, Mary Jane, and Gwen Stacy. So this is like earlier period in Peter's life, when he's in college and all that. And we got this story going on. There's this like book, this ancient book. It has this curse or whatever, and powerful. Someone's trying to steal it, so Spider-Man needs to stop them. But I find a more interesting thing is like the Peter, Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy triangle or whatever, status quo, because it's like Peter and Mary Jane are kind of together, and I'm trying to think like when they actually got together in the regular comics, because obviously it's like Peter and Gwen first, she gets killed, and then Peter and Mary Jane eventually get together. So this is sounding like Peter and Mary Jane, and maybe they just weren't super serious because Mary Jane didn't want to be super serious. So I'm enjoying this just with that aspect, and the fact that it's like this earlier era of Spider-Man, which I find I love this part. So that's cool. Eddie Brock Carnage, number 10. I'm as much as I hate Carnage, I've been okay with this book, and maybe it's because it's Charles Soule. But that being said, I don't care about Muse. It's like we've had Muse for, it feels like, too long now. His whole like attitude and like where it's like, oh, he's just, I feel like he's just insanely lucky. It's everything just works out for Muse. One, the fact that he's still around, walking around, hasn't been caught, hasn't been busted, hasn't been killed, because he did die. He's like, how's he back? Did he come back in that Electric, whatever, comic series? But I feel like he's just, I don't know, way too cocky, and I just don't care for him. And I feel like now it's like Muse. It's like too much Muse. I'm just tired of it. Fantastic Four, number 5. I really enjoyed this. Ryan North, Humberto Ramos. You see Black Cats on the cover. The hilarious cover. It doesn't quite work out that way. But Felicia gets in a kind of sticky situation, and she kind of needs Sue's help, but Sue doesn't like her. So it's an interesting story. I really enjoyed it. Because like some of the Fantastic Four, like last week's or last month, was it last week? Feels like it was last week. The last issue was like, okay, that's fine, but it just seemed a little off. This, I don't know. I just enjoyed this. We have Iron and Frost. What number is this? Number 2. Yeah, I just don't. I don't care. I actually tried reading it, and it's just, I have no interest. There was some talk about the X-Men stuff. I did get a press release about it. I didn't really read it all. That there's going to be more X-Men, some miniseries. There's like a Cyclops miniseries. There's another Storm, whatever. But I'm just finding it hard to care about any of this X-Men stuff because I feel like it's not going to matter. Maybe I'm going to be wrong and there's going to be repercussions, even though it's going to come back and all this stuff is essentially going to be erased because they're going to have to prevent all this bad stuff from happening. So I don't know. We had The World to Come. I'm not reading that. New Avengers number 6. I want to like this book more than I'm liking it because I like the characters. Bucky Barnes, Black Widow, awesome. We got Laura, Wolverine, Laura Kinney. We got Clea, so she's cool. Namor, obviously I can take him or leave him. And Eddie Brock Carnage just feels weird here. I like that they're taking having him here just seems weird and different, but it just the Eddie here just doesn't seem like it fits in with Eddie in his comic. So I don't know. The main problem I'm having right now is this Killuminati. It's like, oh my gosh, they've been going on forever, and I'm just so tired of them. We had a Predator Badlands prequel comic. This was okay. This was fine. I thought, normally if you'd be like, here's a movie prequel comic, you want to read it? I'd be like, no thanks. So I did read this, and it was fine. I guess I would say it's better than my thoughts on previous movie tie-in comics. So it made sense. Is it crucial? No, but it's something. Red Hulk number 10. I didn't read that. Rogue Storm. Not going to read that. Then we have Sinister 6. And I was like, I don't care. I can't read this. But this is by David Marquez. I can't bring myself to do that. Spider-Man 94. This is number 3. This is fine. I'm not loving it. So I just feel like something's missing. Maybe I haven't watched a show in a while, but I don't know. I'm just it's just not getting me excited. Spider-Man Noir number 2. This is I'm not, I wouldn't know if I'd say excited, but I am interested. I'm intrigued with this, seeing more of the Spider-Man Noir character without his mask and that. The fact that there's some color, I prefer that on this. But it's basically Gwen Stacy's dad was killed, and she comes to Peter Parker because he's a private investigator. She wants help with, who killed her dad type of thing. And I shouldn't say anything more. But we also have Mary Jane in the picture and stuff like that. So it's nice seeing the different twist. There's also Spider-Man Wolverine number 7. This is still going, and I'm not caring so much about this. We got that. Spider-Girl number 6. I was going to read this. I just ended up flipping through it because I didn't really have the time to get into that. We have Strange Tales number 2. I was going to read this because I look at this cover, and we got Green Goblin. I like to see who's this cover by. The cover, Bailey Underwood and Jim Campbell. So looking at that cover, it's like, okay, we got Green Goblin. I kind of I like the style and the colors, and he's flying over the Sanctum Sanctorum, and Gwen Stacy's inside. So it's like, wait, what is going on here? But then when you look at the first page, it's like, wait, what does this mean? Kids trick-or-treating? So it's like, I don't know about that. So I ended up not reading that. We had Star Wars #7, and a Jedi will lead them. You know, I don't know if I read this. I thought I read this, and so now I'm flipping through my copy, and I don't know if I read this. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. What I did not read is Han Solo: To Hunt for the Falcon #3. So I should be reading that because that this looks like, okay, we got older, old man Han Solo and Chewbacca. Like, what is going on here? Ultimate Black Panther 22. I'm not reading that, and it says like, why should I bother? The series is ending. So, yeah. Ultimate Wolverine #11. My buddy liked this comic. I was like, okay, well maybe I'll check it out. It gets to the point where it's like I start reading and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't care, and I cannot force myself to read it. So then I just kind of like skimming along, but yeah, and the same thing. This book is ending, so I haven't been reading the issues before. There's no reason for me to get into what's going on. Then we have Venom #251. I don't know what's going on with this series, but it's so bizarre. So at this point, you probably are aware. You should be aware, because we've had 250 issues before this, right? The Venom symbiote has bonded with Mary Jane Watson. So Mary Jane is the all new Venom. Hey, it looks like they dropped all new. And I don't love the idea, but it's like, okay, this is definitely something different. What does this mean? It's weird, but Mary Jane did have powers, when she was Jackpot. So, okay, that makes sense. We can make her a hero. But then what to make things worse? It's like, okay, Doc Ock is leading this symbiote hunting thing, and he's been cleared of all his crimes. Which, are you serious? It's like, this is ugh. So yeah, we have stuff like that, and then Mary Jane, I guess, because people are hunting the symbiote, so she decides to try to change things a little bit, and it's just like, I don't know about that. Yeah, so that was Marvel stuff. At DC, there wasn't a whole lot, and I didn't read a whole lot. So we had Batman 162, which is a Hush story, and I'm like, wait, is this still going on? When was the last time I read an issue or a part of Hush? And I think the next issue isn't solicited to come out until December, so maybe it has reverted to like every 2 months or something, and that's unfortunate. But at the same point, one, Jim Lee's not a super fast artist, and I wouldn't want him to be super fast artist because his art is so amazing. I want him to take the time to do it right. But the other thing is, it's like the story. It's like I don't really care. It feels weird, and because of the schedule. Or I don't know if I finished what I was saying before. It's like, I don't want Jim Lee to rush. If it's taking him a little longer, because I'm sure he's super busy. He's the publisher of everything, all the DC stuff. Yeah, it feels like it's been going on, and I haven't been excited for it. So that's too bad. We have Action Comics 1092. So this was a fine issue. It's going back or more about Superboy being a hero and being in the public. But now, when he's doing all these good deeds and that, it's like the government's like trying to track him down, and like Sam Lane and some other, and Sam is basically trying to pinpoint like where is Super, and they're trying to triangulate where all he's saving this cat in the trees. And it's because it's like early in the career. I mean, part of it is it's a little ridiculous, but Sam's like, we can't have this individual with all this power running around. We need to find out, we need to know everything about him. So do they do this for everyone? Like when Martian Manhunter pops onto the scene, did they like say, we need to know everything about you or whatever? And maybe John's like, sure. Okay. But Yeah. So we'll see where this is going to go. I'm just really on the fence with the idea of there being a Superboy. I don't know. Then there is Batman and Robin 27. I think this is like part 3 of a story. Like I was like, why I can't read it because I haven't been reading it, so I don't know what's going on. We got Green Lantern Corps number 10. I read probably 80% of this, and then I was just like, oh, okay, I don't know. And so we got some interesting things, like all the different emotional, spectrum, batteries, whatever, the different core, they're all an O, which is weird. And yeah, I don't know. It's just something, I don't know what it is. I know I've literally said this before, but I was so into Jeff Johns' Green Lantern comics and everything. And this, I can't get excited. And there's characters I do want to see more in action. Maybe that's the case, or I don't know. See, there is a Batman Dark Patterns. I'm not reading that. There's a Superman the Kryptonite something. Supergirl number 7. I was like, maybe I should check that out. I don't know if I read issue 6, but Supergirl gets turned into a mermaid because there's like some aqua kryptonite or something like that. It's like, okay, that's weird and could be like quirky, which is like how a lot of the comics were in the 50s. But yeah, her underwater and then I don't know. But then that is it. Yeah, there's Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, Aquaman, Mr. Terrific, Year 1. I saw like a spoiler article about Mr. Terrific, so spoiler, I'm just spoil it, that he may have a son. It's like, wait, what? How could that be? But you'll have to read to find out. Then that was it. Batman's Static Shock, Poison Ivy, Children of the Round Table. But that's going to be it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That's comic books for the week. Okay, now we have Pluribus. And yeah, so this is from Vince Gilligan, creator. Is he the only creator? I'm not going to look it up. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and has Rhea Seehorn, who was Better Call Saul. So when this first came out, the first teaser trailer that we had, we see some lady like licking donuts, and like that was it. And there's like a sign, it's like, go ahead, take one or help yourself or something like that. And it's like, this is gross. It's like, what could this possibly be about besides grossness with this lady licking donuts? And now, I mean, I don't know if I've had any donuts like laid out for me since. You never know when you see all the donuts sitting out there. So, yeah, when this was first announced, I don't know if anyone knew what this was about. And that was kind of a neat thing. I think everyone's investing in, it's like Vince Gilligan, Breaking Bad, awesome. Better Call Saul, awesome, even though I haven't finished it. And it just seemed like a no-brainer. Like, this is probably going to be a great show. And Apple TV has dropped the first 2 episodes, which when I saw that, I'm like, ugh. But I'm determined to cover the first 2 because the new episodes come out on Friday. Friday is my deadline. I'm not going to be able to keep up to date, so I'm going to be like a week behind. And by the time this episode is out, the first 3 episodes are now of the show. The first 3 episodes of the show are available. So I was like, I can't just cover one, so I'm going to have to, make sure I cover the first 2. And after watching the first episode, I'm not going to lie, I mean, I was just like holy, but this is the beauty of it. When you watch that first episode, it's like, holy crap, I want to see more. And yes, you have the option that first week to watch 2 episodes, but I'm not endorsing dropping all episodes at once because I don't know who has time to watch an entire series at once. And yeah, if they're all available, it's on your terms. If you're like, I want to watch 3 episodes, I want to watch 5 episodes, I'm going to watch 2 episodes now, and then I'll watch 3 of them tomorrow or in an hour or whatever. But if that's what you're after, you always have the option of waiting until the entire series drops. Then you can binge to your heart's content. I don't see why, it can go both ways. If you are a binge person, you can binge it at the end. Just wait. It's not a big deal. Let's just get started. So, what is the show about? It's it's hard to explain. If we look at like the official what you might call it description things, it says in a world overtaken by a mysterious wave of forced happiness, Carol Sturka, the only person immune, must uncover what is really going on and save humanity from its own bliss. I'm glad I didn't read that before I watched, because I didn't want to know that. And I don't think that's entirely accurate unless there's something that I don't know about that's going to happen, which it could be possible. So let's just get started. Episode 101, We Is Us. It starts off, we see like a timer on the screen. It's 439 D days, 19 H hours, 56 M minutes, and 9 seconds. And it's like counting down 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7. So we see like some really super big satellites. This truck drives out. A couple of nerds, they're astronomers or whatever. They're talking about something. They're very excited. The guy in the truck's like doing something inside. He looks at some screens. It's something from outer space, or is it terrestrial? Some signal is like repeating every 78 seconds. And the dude there says it's been happening, for 3 hours straight. So then some other nerds come and they try to figure out, like, could it be this? Could it be that? They're like, could it be something reflecting off the moon? And the main dude's like, no. He said it to the other guy. He's like, no, I already checked that. Or no, So they're trying to figure out, like, trying to disprove it. Like, what could it be? Because they just don't know what it is. Then this one lady nerd, astronomer, says that it looks like simple pulse width modulation, old school, like Morse code. The first guy is like, yeah, but this is coming from 600 light years away. This other lady there says that this Morse code seems like it's split 4 ways, and the pulses are of equal duration, but they're positioned across 4 different frequencies. So they're not binary, they're base 4. And this dude's like, this won't be easy to crack. Then later we see outside like the little shack by the towers, there's like a lot more cars. So there's more nerds in the room. The first 2 guys are outside while the other nerds are inside trying to figure out. The first 2 are just like tossing football back and forth. So they wonder what it might say. And one asks is like, what do we put in Voyager 1 and 2? Is it Chuck Berry? It's like, maybe this is, their version of Johnny Be Good. Because, one guy's like, maybe it's just like, hello, hi, how are you? Or something like that. The first guy is like, imagine the power it took to send it, megawatts, gigawatts. And he's like, and that it's pointed only at us. And then the second guy's like, they need an antenna the size of Africa. And the first guy's like, no, bigger. He's like, so you go to all that trouble to send a message? It's got to be more than just hello. And why make it hard to understand? Quaternary. It's like, that's like encryption. Why would you bother to? And then he pauses and he thinks. He's like, it's not quaternary. It's like, I think I know what it is. And then it cuts to later. There's a room full of people. So again, this was in the beginning, it was 439 days. So then it cuts. So some time passes by. There's a room full of people. There's like about maybe 20. They're doing stuff with like beakers and liquids. They're wearing goggles and gloves and like medical smocks and all that. The timer on the screen now says 71 days. It went from 439 days to 71 days. 71 days, 13 hours, 21 minutes, 2 seconds. So people are checking results in like these petri dishes. There's lots of vials with liquid samples. You get like centrifuge machine calculations on a whiteboard. There's a bunch of like lab rats and people like these big, they're not like quite hazmat suits, but they're some sort of big medical, maybe they are hazmat, I don't know what you'd call them. And then it cuts to this bookstore. There's a woman, Carol Sturka, who is Rhea Seehorn, the main character. She's reading to a bunch of women, like romance novel. The twin moons hung low and full, 2 wine-green eyes peering over the horizon as if to steal a glimpse into Lucasia's soul, blah, 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 etc. And then when she's done with the passage, the women all applaud and, whatever. Then she's doing a signing at the store. Lots of people come up. They're excited. Signings, lots of whatever, selfies. There's like obsessed fans because this is, I guess, the fourth book in a series. There's a couple dudes dressed up like, I don't know if they're kind of like pirates or something like that. They have like a sword replica, that they want her to sign. And, they're asking a bunch of technical questions or whatever. They're like, well, how can this be or whatever like that? And it's like, oh, when are we going to get the movie? And, please let it be in theaters, not on the Lifetime Network. Then there's like a final group selfie shot outside the stores as a Barnes & Noble. And then the lady and her manager, Helen, they get an SUV, Carol and her manager, Helen. The driver's like, oh, I got you listed at going to a Hyatt Regency in Dallas. And he's like, that was quite a send-off. He's like, sorry, should I know who you are? And Carol replies, like, depends. Are you a big fan of mindless crap? The driver just kind of chuckles, and then her manager kind of like holds her hand, like. And then it cuts to 29 days, 23 hours, or it shows us now at this point from the lab, I guess. It goes 71 days at the lab. Now we're at 29 days, 23 hours, 49 minutes, 56 seconds and ticking. So from 71 to 29. And then it cuts to like a lobby at the United. And I was like, where is this? They don't always tell us the locations. So you have to like listen like that because the driver said that they're at the Hyatt Regency Dallas. So that's where that took place. Here, there's like the dude at a security desk. There's like a carpet on the floor. It's like at this weird angle. I had to pause it, look at it. It said United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. So it's like late at night. This woman comes in, then this man, they're talking to the security dude because he got donuts for them. And that's a security dude. He asked him, he's like, how's it going? And the dude that came in, he's like, have you heard anything? Or whatever. So finally he's like, I think we have a sequence that encodes for a lysogenic virus. But after 8 whole months of animal testing, no clinical signs whatsoever. And then the lady's like, put it another way, we got bupkis. In the lab where all the rats are kept, they're wearing these big sort of like hazmat type suits. They're almost like kind of puffy suits. And they have to plug in. There's like these cables hanging down. And they're kind of like twirly, so they don't get tangled up, I guess. And they have to like plug it into their suits. So I'm not really sure what that does. Oxygen? I don't know. So they're talking about having to put the rats to sleep or something like that, because I don't know if they're going to test them and they can't have them conscious, but one already appears to be dead. So the lady grabs they're like in these little plastic containers that just like slide out. She takes it to the counter, she opens the cage, takes it out. She's trying to see if it's alive, but she can't feel anything with the gloves. She's got these big, huge gloves, so she takes them off, and she still has like rubber gloves underneath, because she's like trying to feel it doesn't have a heartbeat. And then she tells the dude, she's like, oh wait, it does have a heartbeat, a strong one. And she's like, it's weird. If I didn't know any better, and it like bites her and she drops it. The dude goes after it. He's like, did it break the skin? And she looks looking, she's like, it's through the glove. And he's like, poop. He's like, soak it quick, keep it submerged. He's like, if it's bleeding, make sure to squeeze it out good. He's like, I'm gonna call it in as soon as I catch him, okay? So she's like scrubbing her hand in water or whatever, and then she stops. He catches the rat, he puts it in a cage, a little plastic container, and he like notes the time or whatever. Then he looks at her kind of like across the room, and she's like standing at the sink, but then she's kind of like convulsing, or at first I couldn't tell. I was like, is she convulsing or is she just like scrubbing vigorously? So he like goes up to her and tries to talk to her, but she's like not responding to him. He like takes her to sort of like a decontamination shower thing, and he tries telling her it's gonna be fine, but there's no response. And she's just like standing there like blinking. So she's not unconscious, but something happened. And then we see like the security guard in the lobby. He's at the vending machine, even though he's got all these donuts. He like orders like a bag of chips, but they get stuck. The things, it just like it sits there. So he's like trying to reach in the machine, and then as he's down there like sort of reaching, you see someone walking up behind him. So it's the lady, right? I think her name was Jen, and she kind of kneels next to him, and she grabs his face and kisses him, and he's just like, what the heck? And then he starts shaking a bit. So whatever happened to her, she just passed it on. And then the dude from the lab, he goes downstairs. There's a guy like waxing the floor with like one of those, I think he's waxing the floor, one of those big polishers or whatever, floor polishers, probably not waxing it. And, he like kind of waves to him to stop, and the dude's like, yes. And then he puts his the lab guy puts his hand on his shoulder. He leans closer, but the guy moves back. But then the lab guy still manages to kiss him. So whatever this is, he spread it too. He kissed this other dude. And then we almost see like an assembly line. There's all these people. They're like swabbing their mouths with like cotton swabs, and then like rubbing it in a petri dish. And they're working together like going through all these petri dishes and doing this with all these samples. So I'm not really sure what they're doing, like what these petri dishes are. And then we see Jen, she's licking each donut that the security dude brought in. And then this is like for the teaser where the sign says, "Help yourself." And then I at first I thought, wait, is this the next day? But the timer says 0 days, 3 hours, 6 minutes, 34 seconds. So we're down to 3 hours. And then at an airport, Carol and her manager, they get their luggage. She stops and she kind of motions to a bookshop at the airport. So her manager, Helen, she's like, I'm going to go get some gum. So she goes there. She moves a Diana Gabaldon Outlander books, on this like end cap display thing. She takes them off the top and puts them on the bottom of the shelf, and then she moves Carol's books from to the top. And then they reach the parking garage and put their luggage inside. Carol like goes to drive, but Helen like stops her, and Carol's like, I had 1 Tito's in Salt Lake. That was like 2 hours ago. But then Helen gets behind the wheel, and I don't know if this is a thing, but this is a smart thing, although obviously there's ways around it. She blows in is she blowing into a breathalyzer? She blows into it, it goes green, and it starts the car. I'm 100%, I'm down for this. If you are going to go out drinking, you should not be able to drive. And it should detect the limit. If it's like, oh, you can have 1 drink over an hour or whatever, I don't even know how many. Me personally, if I am going to drive, I don't want to have any alcohol in my system. Even though, yes, you can have a drink and whatever, it'll wear off, and especially if you're for me personally, I do not want to do that. I will drink. If I'm not going to drive, sure, give me a drink or whatever. And I really don't drink often. I hardly ever drink. Just whatever. No reason to. But I think this is brilliant. And I don't know if this is a thing. I think all cars should have this, that your car will not start if you have been drinking. Now, obviously, if you're with another non-driver, if it's a kid or someone else, it's not going to detect your DNA. So if someone else breathes into it and they haven't been drinking, it'll start, and then the drunk person could still drive. But at least it's a step, and you have to, go through, a bunch of hoops if you're trying to get around it, whatever. So they drive, they stop at at first I was like, is this a restaurant? It's like a bar. Carol gets a drink, and the manager gets a Diet Pepsi, and Carol's like, we can take a cab home. And she's like, don't tell me you don't need a drink, because you need a drink. And Helen's like, I don't need a drink. And Carol's like, I call BS on that. Helen's like, I need sleep is what I need. So she raised her glass, like, cheers to our best tour yet. And she's got her Diet Coke up. And then she's like, you gonna leave me hanging here? And Carol's like, I don't clink glasses with fudging Diet Pepsi. And she's like, best book tour? It's like, what is that? Is that like the best stomach cancer? And Helen's like, oh, how I hate all those paying customers showering me with love and respect. And why do I have to make so much money? Wah. She's like, how do you bear it? And Carol's just like, a bunch of dummies. And then more talking, whatever. Then Helen's like, maybe it's time to change things. Maybe it's time for your serious book. And Carol gives her a look. And Helen's like, why not? It's like, you've been plugging away at it for 5 years. Carol's like, 4.5, barely. And Helen's like, pardon me. So put it out already. And then Carol's like, I can't. Just, it needs polishing, obviously, right? And I was like, okay, take the next few months and polish. I'll work it out. I'll buy you some more time before your next Waikaro. And I don't know what Waikaro is. I looked it up, and it said some other stuff, and I wasn't sure what that is. I don't know if I was like, is this some book convention thing that I don't know about? And Carol's like, you really think bitter chrysalis is that good? And Helen's like, I think people will love it. And Carol asked her, she's like, did you bring your cigarettes? And Helen's like, since when do you smoke? She's like, I don't, or it's now or whatever. But she wants one. So they go outside, and Carol's like lighting And she's like, she's giving her a hard time. She's like, why are you wasting all my butane, whatever? And she's like, you're supposed to light, the other person's cigarette first. And she then, Carol says something about, putting your own oxygen mask on first, whatever, for help. Then Helen starts reading online reactions. She's like, oh, here's one, 17 exclamation points. Like, that's the best one ever. And it's nighttime. Carol's like blows some smoke, and she notices some planes overhead, kind of flying parallel. She's like, "Look at that!" She's like, "That's weird, right?" And Helen says that that the usual people have commented, plus a few new ones. Everyone loved it. Then she asks Carol, she's like, "Do you want to answer a few questions for them?" And she's like, "What? Now?" She's like, "No." And Helen's like, "Do a quick one. Let them know you're paying attention." So she reads one. She's like. And I don't know if this is more than 144 characters, whatever. She's like, Carol, comma. So I doubt there's going to be all this punctuation. She's like, my husband says Raban, who's the big hunky character in the book, I guess. My husband says Raban can be my hall pass, which I don't think is fair since he's not a real person in real life. Was there an actual man you were thinking of when you came up with Raban? And Carol's like, that's hilarious. And Helen's like, you want to tell her the truth? Like, what have you got to lose? And Carol thinks, she's like, put down George Clooney. And Helen kind of like makes a face or whatever. And Carol's like, what? What's wrong with him? Helen's like, nothing. Just, how about a hot Brazilian soccer player, someone with dreadlocks, hip it up. Carol's like, just put George Clooney. It's safer. So I don't know what's up with that. But then his pickup like drives, and it kind of like bumps into this, it hits this other car, like a VW, like, a Beetle. And it's not like a hard, but it just kind of rolls into it and stops. So Carol goes to the truck. She like knocks on the window. The guy's like slumped over, and she's like, "You okay?" She opens up his door. It's not locked, and then she reaches over, tries to put the car in park. She calls back to Helen. It's like, Helen, should we call someone? And she's like, Helen, stop staring at your phone. And then the guy kind of lets out a groan, and she just like kind of stares at him because he's just like with his head lulled back, and then Helen still has her. She's not even looking. It's like, okay, Carol went over here. You heard the crash. Helen still has her back, and then she just drops her phone, and Carol's like, Helen, and then Helen, boom, falls over. Carol runs to her. She's lying on her back. She's breathing. She's kind of like jerking a little bit, like twitching, and Carol's like bent over, and she calls someone to help. She can't, she looks at Helen's phone, but I think it's not working, or she doesn't know to log in. She runs to the bar. She's like, call 911. And then people are sort of frozen in there. There's like a waitress like right there with a tray of drinks, kind of like shaking, but not moving, just standing there. And then there's like a couple on the dance floor, just kind of like holding each other up barely. There's like people slumped over. The band is mostly still staying on the stage. People's hands are like on the floor, kind of like twitching. The singer's sort of like leaning on the mic stand and like, sort of like breathing into the mic, and it makes this weird noise, like, every once in a while. She kind of moves around. I think there's a guy in the kitchen with like blood pooling around his head. I don't know what happened to him. He must have hit his head really hard. So people are either on the floor or they're like kind of frozen, like barely standing. She tries prying the phone out of a bartender's hand, like behind the counter, but she's got like a firm grip on it. She's like finally gets it out, and she knocks over the guy behind her. She just like lands on top of him, and he's no reaction. She calls the police, but then it's like recording. Like, please remain on the line. The operator will be with you shortly. So she goes outside. Carol's still there. So then there's like a kind of like a sandwich sign, the folding things. And I think it had wheels on it or whatever. So she pulls it over, puts her on there, opens the back to the SUV, puts the seats down, puts Helen in the back, blows into the breathalyzer, and it's red. So it won't start. So she goes over to the pickup truck that like bumped into the car. She tries pulling the guy out, but she can't like get him out. He's like stuck in there. So she kind of like shoves him over, and no reaction from the guy. She opens up the back of the truck, kind of eases the sign over so she can like lift Helen onto it. And it's like they showed something fall out of her pocket. I don't know if it was her cigarettes or something like that. They don't show anything about that later. So Carol drives off. And she sees like sirens up ahead. She's like, oh, thank God. It's a squad car, but it's like on its side. And it looks like the officer like flew out the window. So something happened. And then she kind of sees like the city, like over the hill. She's up on the hill, whatever. Lots of smoke rising. There's fires, whatever. So she drives to a hospital, and there's like an ambulance that like hit a power line, there's sparks, whatever. She goes in the lobby, and it's the same situation. People just kind of standing there or whatever, slumped over and stuff like that. She goes up to this doctor who's like standing there. She's like, wake up. She's like, Dr. Nguyen. She's like, wake up. And he's just like kind of shaking. There's a lady at the counter with her like baby in a baby seat, and she like almost falls over, and the baby's about to fall over, but Carol catches it, sets it back on the counter. She goes behind, like in a hallway, grabs a gurney, pulls like Helen onto it. There's kind of like red around her eyes, and she's like blinking, and it's like, wait, is she awake now? She's like, Helen. She's like, hi, baby, and then her head just kind of lulls to the side. Carol tries CPR, no pulse. She checks for breathing, continues compression. She's like, somebody, please help me. And she's like, God, no, please. And she cries. And then she can still see the lobby. The people start moving. And the dude in the cab of the pickup that she took, he like sits up. So he just goes to he's over on the passenger side. He opens the door and just gets out. People from inside the hospital, they're starting to walk out. She tries going up to that doctor dude again. And he like kind of turns and looks at her along with several other people. They all like look at her around her. And she's like, what is happening? The doctor grabs her and like kisses her, but she like shoves him away. And then two people grab Helen, they're in the back trying to lift her up. And she yells at her. She's like, put her down. She's like, what the hell is wrong with you people? And then this is a freaky part. They all say together, we just want to help, Carol. And she's just like freaks out. So she gets into the truck. And she backs up quickly. She drives. This car is driving behind them, and people go up to it. Like others exit the building, and they're staring at her. She's like driving slowly. Some buildings are on fire. Others are. There's like a bus on fire, and at first I was like, wait, are they lighting the bus on fire? But you see some people like trying to put it out, and she drives away from it. So that then she stops and she gets out after a bit. Helen's still like lying in the back. And then she tries to figure out what to do. She finally makes it to her place. At first I was like, is this her place or is this Helen's place? She drags Helen up to the door and she can't find her keys. So maybe that's what fell out. Maybe her keys to the house fell out when she was moving Helen. That would make more sense because I didn't like try to check it out again. So she starts like banging. There's like a massive door. She picked up this big rock and she's like trying to, I guess, knock the door down or something like that. But it's like not even making a dent. This is like a heavy like solid door. And then a couple kids like in PJs and robes walk up and they both say together, there's a spare key. We can show you. So at first I was like, wait, is this her place or Helen's place? What? And Carol's like, no, stop, don't. And they're like, we don't mean to scare you, Carol. You're in no danger. We really want to help. And then the girl says on her own, she's like, remember April 2016? The last time you got locked out, you put a spare key under the flower pot. The one on the right. There you go. And Carol like tries like shooing away. She's like, leave me alone. And they're like, sure, Carol, just give us a couple of minutes to clear out. So they turn and walk away. And then she hears like beep, boop, beep, boop, like cars unlocking. And the others, she's like sort of in this cul-de-sac or whatever. There's like court. And then other people in the houses like get out. They start, she's starting to freak out a little bit. And they all say, we're very sorry for your loss. And she opens the door. She drags Helen inside. She closes the door, puts a chair up under it. She grabs a golf club and she like kind of checks around the house. And she starts like covering up the windows because there's like some high windows with like no curtains. So she's like putting pillows over them, whatever. And then she sees like all the neighbors' car, like all back up at the same time, like almost like in unison, like a pattern. They don't hit each other. And then they just like leave. And then like next door, there's like a pickup truck with like a trailer pulls up, and some people go inside. They pull a body out of a neighbor's house and they put it on the back. So she's like, wait, what is going on? She turns on her TV, no signal on any of the channels. She's like flipping through them. And then finally she finds one that works. And it's C-SPAN. There's like someone standing at a podium for the White House. And the dude's just like standing there. There's a ticker across the screen. It's like, it says, Carol, when you're ready, you can reach us at this number. No pressure. We know you've got questions. So she looks over at her phone. She picks it up. She takes off the receiver. It's like a cordless phone. But she pours a drink first. Takes a little sip, like whiskey or something like that. She pours it like another one, like a double. Takes it over to the sofa. She calls a number. And the number, in case you are interested, it's area code 202-808-3981. That number again is area code 202-808-3981. And you can call it, you'll get a message, and you can get, like, sign up for help, get texts. I haven't done it yet. I think I'm gonna try that. So she calls, and then they're like, "Hi, Carol, thank you for calling." And she's like, "Yep." So the dude's talking to her. He's like, "This must be so bewildering for you, so terrible. All the death and destruction you witnessed tonight, especially Helen's passing. Please let me note, none of that was intentional. You have our deepest condolences. And to say it again, you are in no danger. You are completely safe." And she's like, "Okay." He's like, "Your life is your own. Please know that. Your well-being is of utmost importance to us." And she's like, "Okay." And the dude's like, "Completely up to you, of course. But you might want to stick close to home for the next few days. We've got a lot to clean up, and it may be distressing for you to see. But we will put things right. To that end, if we may be of assistance with Helen's remains..." Nope. She just like says it right away. Like, "Okay, if we can help you in any way, please let us know. We can deliver food, medicine, whatever you need. Just dial 0, day or night. You will want to call from a landline as all the cellular networks are down." It's like, I wonder, why is that? He's like, "But we are here for you." And then there's like a pause. "We feel like we're doing all the talking here. Are there any questions you might have for us, Carol? Anything at all?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure. I guess to start with, what the fudge is happening?" "Well, basically," she's like, "it's an alien invasion, right? I mean, obviously it's an alien invasion." "Actually, no, it is not." So what the fudge it isn't? You know my name? You know Helen's name? You are talking to me from my TV? And what the fudge is everybody poop, like those two weird, the weird neighbor kids next door? They know where some GD key. How would they know that? Are you reading my mind? No, absolutely not. We couldn't do that if we wanted to. Who is we? Why is everybody suddenly we? And the dude's like, we could continue this after you've had a good night's sleep. And she's like, "Who is we?" And the dude's like, "We is just us," which is the name of the episode. Just us. And she's like, "Who the fudge is us?" Us. There are no aliens, not on this planet. We are, however, beneficiaries of extraterrestrial technology. 14 months ago, astronomers discovered a radio signal from 600 light years away. There's no telling how long it's been repeating, maybe throughout all human existence. This signal, it's made up of 4 tones representing guanine, uracil, adenine, and cytosine. It's a recipe, it turns out, for a nucleotide sequence, RNA. Scientists have created this sequence in a lab. It is not a living thing, per se. It is more akin to a virus. Though it's not that exactly either. It's kind of a psychic glue capable of binding us all together. And she's like, "So, if you're not aliens, who am I talking to right now? Who are you?" This particular individual, this is David Taffler, Undersecretary of Agriculture for Farm Production and Conservation. But you are currently talking to every person on Earth, including Davis Taffler. We're all one. And she's like, "How does that work?" And he's like, "We don't know exactly. It just does." And she's like, "Can I talk to the president?" That individual passed away this evening, unfortunately, along with quite a few senior members of the United States government. It's like, why is that? Is that just coincidence? And then the guy's like, he continues, "David Taffler happened to be nearby and intact, and he was wearing a suit. So," and she's like, "So you're in charge now, the undersecretary of," and he's like, "No, nobody's in charge, or everybody's in charge. Really, there's no such thing anymore." And she's like, "But there's got to be others like me." "Your situation is a rare one. There appear to be 11 other individuals like yourself." And she's like, "In Albuquerque?" "No, in the world. We have reached out to them. Like you, they are disoriented. Understandably. Rest assured, Carol, we will figure out what makes you different." And she's like, "Figure it out why?" "So we can fix it. So you can join us." And she's like, "Oh God." And that's like the freaky part right there. When he's like, so we can fix it. And so she like plops over on the sofa. And he's like, after a pause, Carol, are you still there? And she's like, you said my life was my own. It is 100%. And she's like, so what happens when I say no? Carol, once you understand how wonderful this is, she hangs up the phone. And he's like, Carol? She turns off the TV. Her answer machine goes off, whatever, message like that. Carol, hello? It's us. Hello? We're sorry we upset you, Carol. We only want to make you happy. And she grabs the phone. Shut up, shut up, shut up. And she like hangs up on it. And it's 00. So here's the interesting part. We see the timer. It's 0 days, 00 hours, 59 minutes, 57 seconds. But now, instead of counting down, it's counting up. So then it changes 00 days, 01 hours, 00 minutes, 00 seconds, and 1 second, 2 seconds. So it counted down to 0. Now it's going back up. And that's how the episode ends. So, like I said, when I saw that first episode, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And again, when he's like, so we can fix you, it's just like, oh my goodness. Okay, so that was the first episode. And again, that is a brilliant ending. It is like a crazy cliffhanger. And it's like you should have to wait a week. So talk about it, like what's going on? But second episode, season 1, episode 2, Pirate Lady. So we see this woman walking like rocky hills. There's like a city in the background. There's like smoke from fires. There's like an overturned car. She feels if it's like still warm, whatever, puts on some gloves. She sees there's a body in there. She's working to pull the body out, like a leg is stuck or whatever. Up on that like sort of road, there's like a moving van backs up. There's like foreign language on there. I don't know what language it is, or what country, and I don't want to just guess and then get it wrong and be whatever. So it's somewhere. I want to say the Middle East. I could be. I'm horrible. So this other dude, it looks like he's wearing like a police officer or whatever. So he takes like a tarp out, he goes over, lays it out. They pull the body out onto the tarp, wrap it up, drag it up. There's like a little lift on the back of the truck. So they put the body back there. There's a couple of other ones in there. This dude, like an orange like tracksuit, drives up on a scooter, hands the keys and helmet to the lady. She drives away. And the tracksuit dude just stays with the dude in the van with the body. Other people are in the city. They're working. You see them like cleaning up bodies, whatever. So these are all the people working as one. So they're trying to clean everything up. She has to like drive around. There's like wrecked or stalled vehicles all over. And then we see like this sort of like Jeep or whatever truck drives out of a plane, like a cargo plane. She gets off the scooter. She hands the helmet off to some other dude. She gets into the back of the plane, closes the back hatch, goes in the front into the pilot's seat. And all this, it's like 9 minutes, like the first 9 minutes of the episode, eight or 9 minutes, no dialogue. No one's talking because they're all one. And then it goes into the opening of the show, the intro. There's sort of like waves or whatever, like dots, and it spells out the title or whatever. Timer is continuing to tick forward. We see a shot of like Carol's bottle tipped over. The time shows 00 days, 11 hours, 26 minutes, 30 seconds. So like 10 hours later from the last episode. She must have passed out. She wakes up. She's like on the floor. She like looks over, sees like Helen's body. So it's like that was it. Like it was all real. So that was kind of like, wake up call type of thing. She takes a nice quilt out of a chest, and then she goes in her backyard. She looks around and she starts digging. So she's going to bury Helen in her backyard. The plane from before, it lands at an airport. So I don't know if we don't know. I don't know where this, at this point, when you're watching, you don't know where she landed yet. Is she in Albuquerque where Carol is, or we're assuming? But the plane lands, and like there's some dude standing there. He puts like blocks on the wheel so it doesn't roll away, I guess. There's someone there, like hands her a bottle of water. She drinks it, throws it out. And then it's like empty inside the airport. And she like takes off her boots and socks, throws them in the garbage can. And then she's wearing sort of like this long like skirt, whatever, disrobes, throws it all away. So she's naked. She's all dirty. in the bathroom, there's kind of like two attendees. Like one, starts up a shower, and there's like some other lady in there too. So then the lady who just flew the plane, she's like in the shower washing the grime off of her. So it's like, why do you need this? Why does she have to fly in a plane if they're all one? So obviously she's doing something. But so at this, we'll find out. So Carol's still working to dig a hole, and then there's a lady at the back gate, and she calls. She's like, "Hello." She's like, "You okay?" And Carol kind of raises a shovel, like a little, like to like her hips or whatever. And the lady's like, "Sorry, we didn't mean to startle you." Carol like walks towards her with the shovel, and the lady at the gate's like, "We wouldn't have intruded, but if you don't mind us saying, maybe you could slow down and take a break. You've been at it for 2 hours straight." And it's like, wait, how does she know?
Carol's like, "You people are spying on me." And she's like, "Oh no, you just happened to be outdoors this morning." And she's like, "How? Where? Where are you watching me from?" And then the lady's like, "An MQ-9 Reaper." And Carol's like, "Oh, what?" And she's like, "It's an Air Force drone. And then she like points up. And Carol's like, "I don't see anything." And the lady's like, "Yeah, no, you wouldn't really. It's way up at 40,000 feet. It's not dangerous. It's not even armed." And she's like, "Sorry, bad idea. It's leaving." And she's like, "Please, we'd feel so much better if you'd hydrate." And she's trying to hand her like a bottle of water. And Carol's like, "What's in it?" And she's like, "Water." And Carol's like, "And what else? Something that's gonna make me turn into one of you?" And the lady's like, "No, we're months away from knowing how to do that." And then she's like, Jarmel Gurkey says it's okay." And Carol's like, "Who's Jarmel Gurkey?" And the lady's like, "He's a bottling line supervisor in Winston-Salem. He was running the second shift in the Aquafina plant when this got filled on May 8th. To the best of his knowledge, it's just good, clean water." And then Carol's like, "Why are you standing in my yard talking about whatever the fudge it is you're talking about? Who are you?" And the lady's like, "Someone we thought you might like." And Carol's like, "Not so much, no." And the lady's like, "Sorry about that, Carol. Regardless, you are on the verge of heat exhaustion, and that's the opinion of every medical doctor on earth." She's like, "How about it?" So Carol steps forward. She puts like the shovel in her arm. She takes the bottle, takes off the cap, just drops the cap on the ground, and then pours the water out. And she shakes out the very last drop and like kind of tosses the bottle back to the lady. So the lady picks up the cap, replaces it, and she's like, "You have water in the house. Please drink some, and maybe pace yourself. We can see that we're upsetting you." So the lady starts to leave, and Carol, like, she shuts the back gate, and she pauses, and she runs after the lady. She's like, "Wait, stop." And the lady's like, "You're going to need a pickaxe, by the way. There's a lot of volcanic rock in the soil. Your neighbor Martin at 1204 has one in his garage, along with a sun hat and work gloves." So Carol kind of like gets in her face, like looks in her eyes, and she's like, "Wait right here. Don't move." So she goes inside. She goes in like his cabinet, grabs one of her books, comes back outside, holds it up like the cover that has like a man and a woman. It's a romance novel, whatever. And Carol's like, "What the hell is this? Are you supposed to be my character Raban, who's like the dude?" And she's like, "Why?" So the dude he's kind of a little effeminate on the cover, but he has a little bit of facial hair or whatever. And Carol's like, "If we chose poorly, we apologize. We just want you to be happy." So Carol's like, "Why Raban as a woman?" And she's like, "My original version of him was a her, but I talked myself out of it, and we never told anyone. Helen and I were the only ones who knew. So if you can't read minds..." And she's like, "Carol, you may find this hard to believe, but yesterday was the greatest day in the history of humanity. Helen thought so too." And Carol's like, "No, Helen is not one of you." And she's like, "She joined us before she passed." Okay, and then it was at this point, so I had to I paused it, and I had to resume, and it kind of backed up a little bit. And then I figured out that this is the lady who flew the plane, who was from the other country, who took the scooter or whatever, the other ladies in the bathroom. And, seeing this again, they were prepping a wig. There's a wig on a thing while she showered. So they chose her and flew her out because of her looks. So that's the whole reason. Because, they don't need her if they're all, yeah. So then she's like, "She's gone, but all her thoughts, her memories, they're right here. Should we tell you how much she loved you?" And Carol's like, you bunch of ghouls, you are a goddamn bunch of grave-robbing psychopaths. And she kind of gives her a little shove. She's like, you are the reason she is dead. And now you're going to speak for her? Fudge you. Fudge every single one of you. And then there's like this awkward pause. And they're both kind of like standing there. And it's like Carol was expecting some sort of reaction. But then the lady kind of like shakes a little and like falls forward. Carol has to like catch her. And she like eases her to the ground, like against the car that's parked in front of her house. And Carol like looks around and she's like, hello, anybody? And she looks up in the sky and like waves. She's like, is anybody there? She's like, are you still there? And she's like, fudge. So she goes, she backs the truck that she borrowed last night. She just leaves the lady there. She just drives. And she sees some other people, but they're like kind of like twitching and glitching too. And there's a dude hanging from, I don't know what you call like those like kind of crane things where like telephone reporter, you go in a little compartment thing and it lifts you up. I'm totally forgetting what it's called, but there's a guy like hanging from it. So he was like attached to it and he must have like fallen out, and now he's just hanging by his little strap. And so she like looks she gets out, she looks in the back of the truck trying to figure out how to lower this thing because the guy's like dangling. It's not like a very strong like tether thing, whatever, holding him up. So, and it looks like there's like a small plane that crashed on the roof, like a little like, Cessna or whatever you call them, little private, whatever, recreational planes. And so it's on the roof. So she finally figures out she's trying to lower him, but she can't quite raise him to the roof or lower him to the ground. And he's sort of like rubbing against the wall. And then the people around her start coming too, but she's not really aware because she's like still working at the controls. And this older man comes up behind her and he like says her name. He's like, Carol. And like kind of startles her. And he's like, we can take it from here if you like. And she's like, I was trying to. And then she hears, we know Carol. So it's the guy hanging. So he's talking to her. He's like, we're all right. Thank you. So she hands the controls over. And then like 3 other people are attending to a lady on the ground who's like bleeding. She goes back home. The car and the lady are gone. And so she goes in her backyard and she finds a pickaxe, gloves, and a sun hat by the hole that she started. So she goes back inside, she takes her book with her. She picks up her phone. A voice answers, hi, Carol. How may we help you? And then Carol's like, the pirate lady can come back if she wants. They're like, absolutely. She'll be right over. Is there anything else we can? And she ends the call. She goes back out. She looks at the hat, flings it over the fence. She puts the gloves on, starts swinging like the pickaxe. The pirate lady, we'll call her pirate lady now, she comes back, walks through the gate. She's like, Carol? And then Carol's like, was that me? Did I make everybody freeze like that? And pirate lady's like, we're affected by your emotions, the negative ones. If they're directed right at us, they can be a little tough to take. And then Carol's like, so how many people did I hurt just now? And pirate lady's like, oh, please, that is not how you should look at this. Not at all. And she's like, did anybody die? And pirate lady doesn't say anything. And Carol's like, how many? And then the pirate lady's like, worldwide? It's a few. So Carol's like, dozens? She doesn't answer. Hundreds? And so now, like, pirate lady, she won't look Carol in the eyes. So Carol, like, collapses, like, throws up. And the pirate lady, like, hesitates, puts her hand on Carol's back. And then she's using the pickaxe, a little later, while Carol, like, drinks from a hose. After she's like a little recovered, she looks at the flies starting to buzz around like the quilt with Helen, puts on like another pair of gloves, and she takes the pickaxe and then she gets in the hole. The pirate lady's like, there is a quicker way if you're open to it. And Carol can like barely stand and everything, so she like kind of considers it. Then we see a helicopter kind of like flying, carrying like a mini bulldozer. It sets it down, releases a cable, flies off. Pirate lady like starts it up. Carol just sits and watches like the bulldozer work. It's like this tiny bulldozer, but it's definitely like all what she needs. Now it's nighttime. She's like out there. She's looking. She must have put like a plant or flowers on top of it on the new grave. And she asks the astronauts up in the space station, "Are they like you?" The pirate lady's like, "They are. They're on their way back." And Carol's like, "And everyone at the South Pole and on nuclear submarines, missile silos, Area 51. And pirate lady's like, "Yes, we made a point of reaching them early on. That's kind of the best way to do it. And then Carol's like, how many people like me did you say? 11 others? And pirate lady's like, actually, now there are 12. There's a gentleman in Paraguay whom we became aware of this morning. And then Carol's like, were any of them hurt today when I, did any of them get hurt? And she's like, there was one minor injury. Mostly there was consternation. They're okay. And Carol's like, these 12, how many speak English? Pirate lady says, 5, either as a second or third language. And Carol's like, I want to meet those 5. The pirate lady's like, communication wouldn't be an issue for the 13 of you. We can translate. And she's like, nope. She's like, just the English speakers. And then she's like, we'll have to ask their permission. And Carol's like, fine, ask. Sooner the better. So Carol looks over. The pirate lady has her head down. And then she's like, oh, poop. She's like, no. Hey, are you there? Can you hear me? And quietly, pirate lady's like, we can hear you. So Carol thought she made her glitch out again. And then she looks directly at Carol with a smile. All 5 say yes. So just like that, she was able to find out. So then there's a plane in the air. Pirate lady's in a cockpit with another person flying. The timer comes on the screen. It is now 2 days, 02 hours, 34 minutes, 12 seconds, and counting up. So pirate lady goes past first class, and all the seats, the whole plane is empty. She goes all the way to the very back of the plane. Carol's sitting there. And she asks Carol how she's doing way, back there. Is there anything she can get her? And Carol says that she's good. Pirate lady says that, she's more than welcome to sit up front with them if she'd like. She can take the controls. It's fun. And Carol's like, who's flying this thing? That gal from TGI Fridays? And she's like, maybe just concentrate on her. Pirate lady's like, just let us know if there's anything you need. And she starts back to the front, and she stops and turns. She's like, Carol, this gathering today, we have high hopes for it. And Carol's like, great, but, and she's like, but as we say, your lives are your own. And Carol's like, which means what? And the pirate lady's like, we can't really protect you from one another. We'll be landing in Bilbao in 40 minutes. So Bilbao is in Spain. I was like, where's that? At the airport, several planes land. The different individuals, are there. Carol and the pirate lady, they walk up to 4 others, and she says hello to them in their native languages. There's 3 women and 1 dude. And then she says, would it be acceptable to everyone if we continue in English? And they say, yes, of course. So Carol introduced herself. The dude's name is, he's an older dude. He might have been, I don't remember if he was an Asian dude. Atgan Bayer. I don't think that's how it was, but that's what I jotted down. There's a lady, Xiu Mei, Xiumei, Xiu Mei. And then there's Kusi Mayu, who's like a younger lady. And then there's Laxmi. And she doesn't shake Carol's hands. So she seems like she's got some sort of attitude. But she also has a Band-Aid on her head, so you can probably figure out why. And Carol says, it's a pleasure to meet them all. There's such a relief. But there's like 7 other people, including a kid with them. And Carol whispers, she's like, who are they? And they're all like, hello, Carol. They all say it together. So they're family members. They each introduce the body that they're in. And they're like, we're very pleased to meet you, Carol. So it's not like, oh, I'm Billy. This body, this is Billy's body. Or this is Billy, whatever, son of who so-and-so. So they're like, we're very pleased to meet you, Carol. And she's like, yep. She's like, wait a second, including me. I thought there was supposed to be 6 of us. And they're like, number 6 is a gentleman from Mauritania. He requested a specific aircraft, which took a bit longer. And then she's like, Mr. Koumba Diabate, I forgot what it was, invites you aboard his plane when it arrives. He thinks it'll prove suitable for your gathering. So they go outside when it lands. It's very loud out there. It's Air Force One. So that's the plane he wanted. And then he's like, hello. He has like this fancy coat on. The 4 and their family go on board. Carol gives Pirate Lady a look, and Pirate Lady's like, it was available to whoever asked. On the plane, the dude introduced themselves. The flight attendants are kind of wearing like cocktail dresses. They almost are like models or something like that, supermodels. Later, they're like in a conference room. He shows them, he's got the nuclear football. He's like, he's like, one could blow up the world. And he's like, oh, I'm joking. I don't think it works anymore, but don't drop it. And he's like, ah. So, okay, you can tell who this guy is already. So basically, he's dressed very loudly. He's got supermodels as his attendants, and he requested Air Force One. So Carol, she's like offered champagne, and she passes. And then she tries getting the attention of one of the others, and loudly she's like, excuse me, guys. And Pirate Lady gets everyone's attention. She hands it over to Carol. So Carol's like, thank you very much. So I think we're all good here. And she's like, family members, beautiful woman, Pirate Lady, you can go, I'll go wait on a tarmac. And locks me, the one with the Band-Aid on her head. She's like, why should my family have to leave? And Carol's like, we need to talk amongst ourselves, just the six of us. That's why we're here, right? So they start to leave. Then Carol asks Pirate Lady if there's any hidden microphones in there or recording devices. And Pirate Lady says that there's a built-in system that came with the aircraft. And she's like, we can make sure it's turned off. So she opens this panel and she turns off like 3 switches. And the lights on the system, turns off so you can see that they are off. The dude with the asked for the plane, he's like, I did not know that was there. So Pirate Lady's like, you have complete privacy. She's like, call us if you need us. So Carol kind of follows, make sure to exit, and then she returns, and they're talking about like Harrison Ford, get off my plane type of thing. So Carol's like, what are we going to do about this? And they just like look at her in silence, and she's like, anyone have training in biology or genetics? Anybody a doctor, a medical doctor? Any background in science of any kind? And there's like just kind of some murmurs, whatever. She's like, anyone build a volcano? And then the others are all silent. And she's like, all right. And she's like, I don't know how we do this. I don't know, where we begin, but it's up to us now. The future of humanity is in our hands. As scary as that sounds, it's up to us to put the world right. And then it's just silence. And then the suit guy, he's like, why? Carol's like, why save the world? Is that your question? He's like, why does the world need saving? At present, the situation seems very nice. And Carol's like, cool plane, really. Meanwhile, everybody everywhere else kind of is turning into some kind of fudging pod person, right? And it's like, and it does not matter how nice they are to us or how many supermodels they send to peel our grapes and bleep us off. She doesn't say bleep. It's like, that does not change the fact that this is not right. I've seen this movie. We've all seen this movie, and we know it does not end well. And then Locksmith's like, are you the one who lost her temper and made them all stop moving? So Carol's like, she gives a small nod. So then Locksmith's like, when you did this, I was in an automobile. My grandfather was driving. The automobile crashed, and my grandfather died. Carol's like, I'm sorry, I didn't. And then Ott gone by her, he's like, she did not know they do that. Nobody know. And Carol's like, and it won't happen again. And Locksmith's like, I don't know. You seem very angry. And Carol's like, I'm very sorry you lost your grandfather, but the rest of your family waiting outside, you've lost them too. Everybody understands that, right? Your husbands, wives, parents, children, they're not them anymore. And Locksmith's like, my child is still my child, very much so. And Carol's like, that cute little boy we just met, the one who can perform open heart surgery and fly the space shuttle, yep, he's right as rain. And Locksmith's like, you listen, that is my child out there. And Carol's like, he is also your prime minister, some guy you dated in high school, your gynecologist. Think about that. And she's like, you are a horrible person. And Carol's like, okay, who's the angry one now? And he's like, guys, I'm not looking for a fight here. I'm just trying to make a point that this whole thing, we have to do something. And then Shu Mei says, do what? And Kurumba's like, I am not convinced things are as bad as you say. As we speak, no one is being robbed or murdered. No one is in prison. The color of one's skin, by all account, now is meaningless. All zoos are empty. All dogs are off their chains. Peace on earth. And Carol's like, assuming that's even true, ask yourself, what's been lost? Otgan Bayer says, why zoos are empty? Shou Mei says, they empty them everywhere. They let loose all the animals. Beijing Zoo is by my house. I look outside, I see giraffe eat all the leaf off my tree. And she said that she tried to shoo it, but it wouldn't go. She also did not give away her dog. Karumba says, apparently when it came to the lions and the tigers, they suffered quite a few maulings. And Carol's like, can we just stick with talking about the people? What's going to happen when they figure out how to turn us into them? And Kusimayu's like, that is what I want. I want to be with my aunt. I want to be with my cousin. And Carol's like, oh, honey, no, you don't. You may think you do, but you don't. And Lakshmi's like, don't tell her how to think. And Carol's like, could you just please? She's basically saying, like, can you like shut up? And then back to Kusimayu. She's like, look, I know you are lonely and scared, and this whole thing is terribly confusing. Believe me, I know. But everything about you that's you, everything that is personal and individual and special, if we let this happen, you won't have that anymore. And she's like, I'll have it. I'll share it. And Carol's like, well, what did they tell you? What kind of promises did they make? And she's like, no promises. They only tell me what it's like. You don't think that sounds wonderful? You don't ask them what it's like? And Carol's like, no. And Lakshmi's like, how could you not ask them what it's like? And to the others, she's like, raise your hand if you asked them. All the others like raise their hand. So she's like, you sit here and you tell us we must do this. We must do that. But you don't even bother to educate yourself. Why should we listen to anything you say? And Carol's like, because I'm smart enough to know you don't ask a drug dealer to describe their heroin. Now, what are we going to do here? I'm open to suggestions. So it's just like quiet. And then, what's his name? Kaumba. He's like, who's hungry? He's like, I'm famished. So he goes to the door. He's like, hello, good people. We are interested in lunch. And they all nod in unison. So then they're at like some country villa. You know, they're outside, just long table. The food cover, like the little, what do you call them? They, lift up the covers. And everything looks amazing. They're like, voila. Kaumba is like happy. Carol's frustrated. Kaumba talks about how the food is. It's like when he was a kid or something like that. He mentions a pirate lady. He's like, I did order a lobster. And she's like, we apologize. We searched a wide radius, but the only lobster currently available is live. He shrugs, like kind of like, so? And pirate lady's like, we don't kill. And Kaumba is like, not even a lobster? And she shakes her head. She's like, your chicken, fish, beef, veggies are the freshest we could find in the local markets. So they start talking amongst themselves about the food. The others are with their family. Lakshmi says, the pirate lady, she's like, so you're vegetarians? And pirate lady's like, that would be our preference. And then Kaumba's like, what if I wanted escargot? Surely you can kill snails. And pirate lady's like, no. Shu Mei says, a wasp even? If it's about to sting, you don't kill it? And pirate lady's like, no. Atgan Bio says, what if you step on tiny insect? If you step on tiny insect by accident? Pirate lady's like, we try not to. We can't personally end life. It's not in our nature. And Carol's like, well, hip fudging hooray for you. And she downs her drink and she looks at the others. She's like, they won't step on a bug, but they'll enslave an entire planet. Yeah, that makes sense. So pirate lady's like, our joining is very much the antithesis of slavery. And Carol's like, you're joining? All the marketing brains on earth, and that is what you came up with? Wow. I don't remember you asking anyone. I don't recall anybody getting a vote on whether or not they wanted a joining. And pirate lady's like, we ourselves have no choice, but for us, it is a biological imperative, like breathing. But every time one comes to understand how wonderful it feels. And then Carol's like, how many fudging people died during your wonderful fudging joining? Lakshmi's like, must you curse so much? There is a child present. And Carol like pauses, smiles. She's like, I'm sorry, Ravi. I apologize. And Ravi, the kid, he's like, it's quite all right. And then Carol's like, tell me, Ravi, for a pelvic exam, what kind of speculum do you prefer, metal or plastic? And Lakshmi's like, what? Ravi's like, it would depend. Both have their uses. Lakshmi's like, no, stop it. But Carol's like, but I mean, you probably wouldn't do a palpation, right? Not with those tiny little fingers. And Lakshmi's like, how dare you? And Carol turns back to pirate lady. She's like, how many people died? Pirate lady's like, we didn't intend for anyone to die, and for the first month, no one did. We would bring in newcomers individually, thousands every day. It was all very peaceful. But then the military discovered us, and to avoid even more bloodshed, we had to accelerate the process. And Carol's like, so, how many? Pirate lady, like, doesn't say anything. How many people died? Pirate lady finally says, 886,477,591 as of this moment. And she's like, Jesus. It's like, wow. I guess you got to break a few eggs, huh? Lakshmi's like, you killed 11 million. And this is like news to Carol. She like looks at Pirate Lady, and Pirate Lady just kind of looks down after a second. And Kouma goes back to his conversation. And then he's like, so what if I caught a fish? Or say procured a chicken and a pig, and I myself did the what then? Carol grabs a drink. So she gets up quickly. Pirate Lady tries to continue answering while Carol's like at this table, a little ways off. She pours herself more wine or champagne, whatever. And she's like, we would mourn the passing of these creatures. And Koumba is like, but you would cook them for me? And she's like, yes. He's like, okay. Carol downs her drink, she pours another, and stupid Lakshmi asks, she's like, are you going to continue, let her, continue like this? And Pirate Lady's like, Carol, after lunch, we were thinking you all might like a tour of the Guggenheim. It's a beautiful museum. And Carol's like, yeah, Helen talked about it. It was on our bucket list. But you already know that, don't you? She's like, all right, warm up my plane. I'm going home. And Lakshmi's like, good riddance. And she stops. She turns back to the table, and she like points to them. And she's like, you, and especially you, Lakshmi, have the time of your lives. Enjoy it. Eat, drink, be merry. Go to the Guggenheim, Disneyland Paris, wherever else these whacked out Moonies take you next. But know this, you are traitors. You are traitors to the human race. And she kind of like shoulder checks Pirate Lady and she storms off. And then she falls over. I was like, wait, did she pass out? Pirate Lady and like the models run to her. Some of the others, I think, kind of get up, but they stay back. Pirate Lady's like leaning over her, and she starts to come to, and Carol's like, what are you? Get off me! Get off me! Get off me, you fudging freaks! But then Pirate Lady kind of leans on top of Carol, so she kind of like fell over on her, and then she's shaking, she's glitching. Carol did it again. Because like the models are glitching as well. And Carol realized what's happening. She's like, God. She's like, no. The other survivors are reacting to their family members, like glitching out. Lakshmi starts yelling at Carol in her language. And then it's 02 days, 16 hours, 13 minutes, 36 seconds. We see someone's like lying under a lot of pillows and covers in a hotel room or something like that. It's Carol. She gets up, pours herself a drink. She's drinking already. It's like whiskey or something like that. She sits on the bed. Then she picks up the phone. Good morning, Carol. Hope you slept well. And she's like, how are you feeling? We couldn't be better. Thank you for asking. May we get you anything? Carol's like, you got anything to make me stop doing this? And they're like, we don't, sorry. But how about something to eat? We can make you some great bacon and eggs. Remember your trip to the inn at Little Washington, fall of 1998? They served that pepper bacon that you still talk about. We flew it in for you. And your favorite crispy brioche from some blah, blah place, deli, whatever, breakfast, eatery thing. And then Carol's like, how bad did I screw things up with the other 5? Did they leave? And she's like, all but one. So Koumba's the one who stayed. Pirate Lady makes him his martini. He's like, oh, this is the finest I've ever tasted. Carol comes in and he asks her how she's feeling. And Carol's like, better than I should for being the biggest mass murderer since Stalin. And he's like, I don't think these people see it that way. And all of them, the people in there, they're like, no. So then he has the models leave. He asks Carol to sit. He offers coffee, tells her the Guggenheim is really worth a visit. She cuts to the chase. And he says that, she's like, what is it? Why are you here? And he says that he is headed to Las Vegas, Nevada. And, has she been there? And she's like, are you looking for hotel recommendations? He says, no. He's like, I'm staying at the Westgate. He's like, I'll occupy the penthouse of Mr. Elvis Presley. Some say it is haunted by his ghost. and this intrigues me. And she's like, okay, well, give Elvis my regards. So she starts to get up. And if it is acceptable to you, I wish for Zoja to accompany me. She suggested I ask. I believe she needs your blessing. Carol's like, who's Zoja? And Combe is like, your chaperone. And Carol's like, accompany you for what? And he kind of gives her a look like, huh? And then she's like, Jesus. He's like, what can I say? In the past day, I've spent time with her, gotten to know her, learned her name. I feel we've made a connection. Carol's like, can I ask a question? What is wrong with you? Is it a medical condition? Is that it? It can't just stay in? He's like, I apologize. Clearly, I have struck a nerve. If she is your companion, and Carol's like, she's not my anything. None of them are. They are a bunch of brain damage incompetence. But you keep sticking your bleep in them, and he like stands up. He asks Zoja to come join them, please. He's like, have I behaved in an untoward fashion? Have I shown you, any of you, affection that was not in any way unwelcome? Pirate lady's like, Zoja, for us, affection is always welcome. And then he's like, Zoja, what is the square root of 46,279? And she's like, is it okay to round it off? And he like nods. And she's like, just a bit over 215. And so he's like, I have a strong sense that that is correct. Carol stands. She's like, okay, let me see if I got this straight. Casanova McBoner here wants you to join his harem, which is hunky-dory with you, provided I give you my permission. And pirate lady Zoja, she's not sure what to say. And Carol's like, that's your idea of paradise? Being used like some sex doll? He's like, hey. And Carol's like, and I'm what, your pimp? And he's like, that is completely uncalled for. And Carol's like, you're completely uncalled for. The entire fudging world is ending. And instead of doing the right thing and trying to help me, you'd rather run around sticking your... And he cuts her off. He's like, please, the last thing these people need is you losing your temper. And then she's like, you want to go with him? Go with him. And she's like, please, work this out yourselves. We can't choose. And Carol's like, yes, you can. If you can do square roots in your head, you can make choices. And there's a whole third option where you just tell us both to piss off. Pirate lady Zoja, she's like, if we were to choose, it would hurt one of you. We can't do that. And Comba's like, perhaps I've not seen the movies you spoke of, but to me, this does not feel like the end of the world. Carol nods, smiles, goes upstairs without a word. On her plane, she's sitting in the back again, and she decides to scooch over to the window seat. She sees everyone getting on Air Force One, and pirate lady's like, she's like the last one. She kind of like looks over before she goes inside, and then Carol just like closes the blind, and she sits there. But then she gets up. She starts going to the front. She yells, she's like, stop, open the door. Then we see Air Force Ones like on a runway. It started, moving. She runs out in front. She's like waving her hands. And then the plane stops. And that's the end of the second episode. So did she decide that she wants Zoja, pirate lady, to be with her? Because, she's kind of formed a connection, sort of. And it is, she is kind of like her companion. But, yeah. And not that she necessarily wants her as a companion, but she probably feels a little bit of attachment, and the idea of her being used is just weird. And it's just so weird that you're gonna be with someone, but you're with every single person on a planet at the same time. And it just seems weird. Yeah. So no idea where the show is going to go. Like what this is such a bizarre idea, and I don't know what's going to happen next. And I think that's great. How many seasons can this last? And are there going to be other people or what? I don't know. And I think that's cool. Okay, now Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 3, Now You See It. I'm totally digging this show. I'm sure I said that last couple of weeks, but it's kind of blowing me away
when I heard about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, this is gonna be cool. I was like, do we really need this? I just love how it feels like they're adding so much that almost like it was always there, like it's always supposed to be there. And I just love how they're just adding layers to it, and having Dick Halloran, I think is, some people might think like, oh, it's a cheap, easy, whatever. But I think it's cool, and I really really dig it. So it starts off in 1908, and at first I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, wait, 1908. We're in 1962. It's every 27 is a magic number. So I'm like, okay, 1962 minus 27 is 1935. 1935 minus 27 is 1908. So it's like the perfect year for something to go down. So this is not going to be good. There's like some carnival. We see this kid, he like walks through, he's kind of marveling at everything. And then there's like the human freak tent. The announcer calls him over, tells him to step right up, but he doesn't ask him for any money, which is kind of weird. And then he kind of chuckles when he goes through the entrance. There's like, distorted mirrors and stuff like that. Some guy playing like freaky piano music. He's like, keep moving. And then there's like some people in cages reaching out. It's like really dark in there. You see like these twin girls dancing, and then they, like facing each other, whatever. Then they kind of like turn, reveal this big kind of like thick umbilical cord or something, joining them together. It's like bloody, it looks gross. He keeps walking, and then he goes in the back, and it's like quiet, and it's like dark. And you're, hello, boy, come closer. Don't be afraid. Come closer. And it's like so dark you can't see anything. Come on, come closer. Yeah. That's right. And then a match is struck. There's this old man who's like missing teeth. And he's like, now you see it, which is the name of the episode. And then he like starts laughing. So the kid runs, other people are laughing. He runs out of the tent, and his dad's out there. He kind of runs into him. His dad's like, whoa. It's like, there you are. And he sees he's scared, and he looks up, he sees that he ran like out of the freak tent. He's like, for the love of, he's like, don't be a damn sissy, Francis. He's like, your old man won you something. So he gives him like a slingshot, and he's like happy, whatever. They walk off, and then there's a shot of, there's like a clown. I think it was a clown girl, makeup just like Pennywise. Maybe it wasn't a girl. I thought it was a girl. I could be wrong now. I should have gone back, because I was like, wait, a girl? Maybe it's not a girl. I don't remember. They're done. They're driving home, kind of like through like open field stuff, whatever, and then the car overheats. So dad's like looking at the engine, there's smoke. Then he like hands some change to the kid, Francis. He says that the fair cleaned him out, and he tells him to get them some water, because there's like 3 kids on the side of the road right there, like perfect, right next to him. So Francis goes up to him, gives him some change, and they tell him, there's a sign there to say it's 5 cents. They have these little like glass containers of water. He's like, well, that's all I got. And the girl's like, is that a slingshot? Like stick in his pocket, and he kind of smiles. And then we see them driving off. Dad's whistling, and then he looks over. He's like, where's that damn slingshot? But Francis doesn't answer. Next scene, we see Francis and the girl. She's like Native American, whatever. And sorry, not whatever. It sounds so bad. They're like running through a field. And then she has a slingshot, so he gave her a slingshot. There's a few other kids playing and stuff like that. They keep running, and then he starts heading towards, like, they're like on his path. He starts going towards the woods, and she calls out. She's like, wait, Francis, no, come back, wait. But he keeps running, like, into the trees. And she's like, come back. And then he's kind of like deep in, and he stops. He's still smiling and everything, but then the smile disappears. He like looks around, and it's like, wait, was that someone like behind a tree? And it almost looks like that old man with the match. And he's like, what do you want? And then the man like pokes his head out again, kind of like startling Francis. He like falls back, steps on this like branch, like kind of rolls, and then he picks it up to use like as a club. He's like, leave me alone. And he like hides behind a tree, and then he's like kind of like looks around, and he turns around, hello. And then he screams. He runs between the man's legs. He's running through the forest. The old man's following, but then now he's like fast, and his arms and legs are like getting longer. And he's like almost like he's starting to grow. And he's like his teeth are getting sharper. Francis like falls. The creature, he has rows of teeth, like shark teeth, like, and he gets ready. He's about to chomp, and then he gets like hit in the eye. Blood kind of shoots out, like splatters on Francis. The girl shot this old man creature thing with the slingshot, and she tells Francis, she's like, come on,
So the creature is kind of off balance, but it keeps chasing them. And it's like kind of bumping into trees as it's running. Frances is a girl. They're running. The creature like lunges, and it cuts to the intro. So it's like, wait, what happened? Then we're at Juniper Hill. So this is like the quote-unquote present. This is 1962. Lily's mom arrives. She's talking to the doctor. He says that he's upped Lily's dosage, but if she has another episode, they may want to discuss a more restrictive treatment plan. The mom's like, where's she now? And the doctor's like, he says that Lily forged quite the bond last summer with the head of their housekeeping staff. She wanted to say goodbye before she left. So there's this lady, and she says that, it's going to be okay because Lily's a bright girl. She'll figure it out. Lily says, it's her fault that Ronnie's dad's in jail. They don't even, know each other that well. And she tells the truth about what she really saw then. And the lady's like, you'll probably end up right back here. So Lily's like, what would you do if you were me? And the lady's like, my father used to say that life is about the journey, but I think it's more about who you take that journey with. And if this Ronnie means as much to you as it sounds, you're going to find a way to make things right, somehow. And she's like, listen, if you tell me that you've seen the impossible, then I believe you. Most people, well, they only believe what they can see with their own eyes. And she puts this big charm bracelet around her wrist. It's like, did she just happen to have that with her? I don't know. Maybe she knew Lily was leaving. I don't know. Then at the jail, the police chief, he comes to talk to Hank, Ronnie's dad. And he's like, whoa. He's like, hey, I come in peace. And he offers him a cigarette. They're talking about cigarette brands and stuff like that because Hank, he kind of likes this fancy one. And the chief's like, oh, we don't really have that. See much of that on this side of the pond or something like that. They're talking about commercials. He's like, yeah, those commercials with so-and-so actor. And Hank corrects him. He's like, no, it's actually this character, this dude does the ads for this or whatever. And the chief says like, yeah, you know your territory. He's about Hollywood and stuff like that. He's like, you know what I know? What my territory is? Liars. I can sniff them out a mile away. He's like, where were you the night of the murders, Hank? And Hank's like, I told you. I was at home. And the police chief's like, then why do I have an eyewitness puts you on Jackson Street at 11:30? He's like, yeah, a witness called it in, said that she saw your picture in the papers, put two and two together with the man she'd seen sneaking around the shadows that night. She wrote a sworn statement. Hank's like, yeah, don't make it true. And the chief's like, well, she was pretty upset. So we went out there, had a look around, and found this at the scene. Puts a pack of cigarettes on the bars. It's the brand that is in common there that Hank said he smokes. And then the chief's like, thou shalt not lie, Hank. Do you know what they do to kitty killers in Shawshank? And Hank's like, I didn't do nothing to those kids, and I wasn't nowhere near that theater. Chief's like, then where were you, Hank? And don't give me any more guff about you being at home in bed. Don't insult my intelligence. And Hank doesn't say anything. He's like, all right, we're going to miss you around here, Hank. At least we got the memories. He starts walking away. And Hank's like, wait. It's like, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. Come back. At school, Ronnie's walking down the halls. Everyone's staring at her locker. Someone wrote, Hatchet Hank's gonna fry. And I don't know if it's a time period, if it's Derry. These kids are so incredibly mean. She looks around and the three mean girls are smiling. So it's did they do this? She starts rubbing off the writing. It's in red. I don't know if it's lipstick or what is it, but she's just rubbing with her hands. Will standing by Rich's locker, and Rich's like, can you imagine your dad turns out to be a psycho killer? I mean, they must have evidence if they arrested him, right? This is America. You can't just throw people in jail for nothing. Will gives him a look. He's like, are we talking about the same country? So then now there's a big red smear on the locker. It almost seems like it's too much of a smear, and her hands are all covered in red. Will's like, she just doesn't seem like the kind of person that would have been raised by a killer. That's all. Then in the bathroom, she tries washing the red off her hands, and she's making a bit of a mess at the sink and everything. Lily comes in with a bottle. She's like, hey, I grabbed this from the nurse's office. It should help get that off. And you can see when she sits down, it's rubbing alcohol. Ronnie's like, you're the last person I need help from. You're lucky I don't whoop your ass for what you did to my dad. You just walk on out of here. Just go. Lily's like, I'll tell them, okay? what I really saw. And Ronnie's like, you will? And Lily's like, I'll do anything to make it right. It happened again at the grocery store. I saw my dad. And Ronnie like looks at her. She's like, they sent me back to Juniper Hill. Now everyone thinks I'm still crazy, or I don't know, even more crazy. So even if I tell them the truth, no one's going to believe it. People only believe what they can see for themselves. It won't matter what we tell them unless we can show them proof. And Ronnie's like, how are we supposed to get proof? Lily takes a camera out of her bag. Ronnie looks at it. She's like, you actually think this thing is going to stop and pose for pictures? Lily's like, what have we got to lose? It's worth a shot to prove that I'm not crazy and that your dad's not a killer. So Ronnie's like, okay, say we try this and we actually get something. What are we going to do? Send it to Keen's to get developed? We'd never get those pictures back. And I don't know how to develop a roll of film. Do you? And Lily's like, no, but there must be someone we know who can. In the general's office, he's like, we stripped Caddy down to the bolts. If there was anything hidden inside, we'd have found it. It's clean. Nothing but blood, stains, and bullet holes. We even checked the area. This is like, I think the colonel's saying this. We even checked the area around the dig site. Must have dug up half an acre. Still no luck. And the general's like, of course not. What we're looking for was buried in Derry 300 years before the automobile was even invented. But that car had to give off something for Halloran to be able to find it. And the colonel's like, it's part of the 1935 cycle. The Bradley Gang massacre, a bunch of Dillinger wannabes. Town went crazy and shot them all to hell. Eyewitness reports at the time suggest sightings of an entity in one of its forms. And the general's like, everything we've dug up so far, and we're no closer to locating the target. And we're running out of time. Halloran's psychic abilities have been proven, but there's only so much he can do stuck on base, pointing at maps. We need to get him closer to the target, right on top of it, if possible. And the colonel's like, on top of it, sir? And then the general looks at a drawer. He's like, put him in the air. He's like, colonel's like, Halloran's the key to this whole operation. If something should happen to him, and general's like, we have Major Hanlon to look after him now. So the colonel's like, well, with all due respect, sir, how do we know Halloran will do any better in the field? And the general's like, maybe he just needs a little something extra to guide him. So he takes out a cigar box from the drawer. He's like, something that put its mark on that thing a long time ago. So Dick is like talking with the boys, or like sitting around. He's saying how he met Aretha Franklin. They had a night together, and she even wrote a song about him. And whatever they don't believe him. They're giving a hard time. It's raining, and then a piece of tent like rips, and a big thing of water's like hits like their card table. So they say to Dick, they're like, "Hey, we thought you were supposed to have special privileges." And he's like, "So?" And they're like, "Well, can't you get us an upgrade?" Then the colonel is at the entrance. He tells them it's time. So then, I don't know if it must be the next day because it's not raining. Hanlon and Russo are walking towards, like, they're walking out towards a plane or something like that, on a runway, not whatever you want to call it. Russo said that he'd like to get his hands on Masters and his buddies, but Hanlon says that he was shipped off yesterday. So the racist guy's gone. Then they're like egging each other on, and then the colonel, he's at a double helicopter. He's like, this is Airman Halloran. So he introduces them. Russo asks, what exactly are they going to be surveilling this afternoon? And the colonel's like, your counsels. He's like, think of Halloran here as a human compass. You go where he says to. And then he hands a cigar box to him, and Hanlon like notices. He's like, why is he giving him a cigar box? But he's like, sounds good. In the air, Hanlon and Russo are like in the front. Halloran's like just sitting like on so the whole thing, it's kind of like a cargo helicopter or whatever you want to call it. So he's just sitting like sideways in an open seat. He's holding the box. He's kind of like tapping his thumb on the box. He seems like kind of nervous, a little jittery, whatever. He's like looking down, and Hanlon's like, what's with the cigars? And he's like, no cigars in here. And Hanlon's like, well then, what's in it? And Dick's like, you wouldn't understand. And he like slowly opens it. There's an old slingshot in the box. So it must be from the slingshot the girl had at the beginning, right? And he touches it, and then he's like, you're going to need to turn east. And they were like, what? They just look at him. And he's like, east, now. So Russo looks back at him. Hanlon's like, roger that. East we go. So then it cuts to Francis and the girl running in the woods. The creature is like roaring. They make it to the clearing, and the girl stops. And Francis runs a little bit. He's like, why are you stopping? He's like, we have to get out of here. And she's like, we're okay now. And she's like, look, it doesn't leave the woods. And he's like, what was that thing? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, stop, please. Why can't it leave the woods? And she's like, can you keep a secret? Then we see the girl, it morphs to her like 54 years later, and she's with others. And like someone's like saying, they're like in this big, meeting. They're like, I don't know what they think they're doing out there. Our ceremonial grounds have always been off limits. So they have like a bunch of large like photos on easels at the front showing like the digging. This other lady says that if they want the land, they should at least give them a fair price so they can fix things up around the marsh. One of the younger guys, he's like, who was watching the dig, we saw him last episode, he goes up to the older version of the Slingshot Girl, and he says that the car they dug up, it was Al Bradley's from 35, the massacre. And he's like, we have to do something now, Auntie, before they get any closer. And she's like, no. You and your friends are not to get involved, not in this. You're needed. Do you understand? And he like nods, and she stands up, and then she says, something has to be done now. So the dude says that he's requested a meet. He's asked for a special liaison to the community. They've heard nothing. So what does she suggest? She's like, something stronger. We start with a cease and desist letter. People start grumbling. They're like, oh, whatever. And she's like, there's still time. It's like, if we don't hear anything, then we'll file a formal complaint through the federal government. So her nephew's like, they'll just ignore it. And she asks, she's like, do you want to stop them? And she's like, I don't. Not until, I find out what they're actually doing out there. So the helicopter is still flying. Russo looks back and sees Dick has his eyes closed. And he's like, hey, Halloran, you all right back there? And he's like making little noises like he's in pain. Russo asks Hanlon, Leroy, he's like, what the hell's he doing? And Hanlon's like, you think I know what's going on? And he's like, Halloran. And then Russo's like, human compass? Look at this fudging guy. Does that look like a human compass to you? He's having a GD fit. So Hanlon starts to call the base. Russo says, he's like, I have a friend at another base, and they're doing mind control on goats or some poop. Is that what this is? So Hanlon radios, there appears to be something wrong with Halloran, unresponsive, requesting permission to head back. And they're like, that's a negative, Major Hanlon. Maintain present course. He's like, I'm advising again, permission to head back. And they're like, that's a negative, Major Hanlon. And then Dick's eyes snap open, and Hanlon's voice is like an echo. Halloran stands up, starts walking towards the back of the copter, and Hanlon starts yelling his name. He's like Halloran, Halloran. And Dick starts he's like, there's water in the back of the copter. And he turns around, and he's like in a different vehicle. It's like, is he in a submarine or something like that? There's like this big hatch, shuts. There's like a big spin thing, whatever. In front of him, there's like this big wooden sign, almost like a circus train car or something like that. And it says Pennywise with a picture of a clown. And then the whole side falls open, and it's really dark. You can't see anything inside. And then yellow eyes. And he's like, who are you? And a giant head leans forward, and there's almost different types of clowns flash across. There's marionettes, whatever. And you see a soldier falling over, is wounded, half his face is a bloody mess, whatever. There's shooting, there's wounded soldiers, explosion, and then things start falling in the water around him. There's a doll, toy house, all this stuff's falling. He looks up, and then he sees the big pile of belongings, remains of Pennywise victims, like we saw in the movies. At the end, there's some bodies floating around it, and there's this woman floating, and he's like, Grandma? And she's like, he's coming, Dickie. Get out of here now. And he goes to the hatch. He tries turning the wheel thing, but then in the copter, he's actually turning something up on top, and he's opening the back hatch manually. So then Hanlon got out of the seat. He's behind him. He's like, Halloran. He's like, step back, because he's he tries breaking free. He's right at the edge of the hatch thing. He's about to fall out of the helicopter. So then Hanlon has to pull him back in. They fall back on the floor. He's like, Halloran, Halloran. And he's like, no. And he's like, hey. Russo's like, you both in? Because he's piloting, up front. So Russo shuts the hatch from, hit something in the front, shuts the back. And Hanlon, he sets Halloran back onto his seat, and Dick's just sitting there like catching his breath. Then like in the med bay or whatever, General Shaw, he checks on Halloran, asks how he's holding up, and Dick says, like, I feel fine. And then he's like, the general's like, so you saw it? And Halloran's like, more like it saw me. And Shaw's like, what was it like? And Dick's like, cold. So the general's like, you did good up there today. If there's anything we can do to make your time here a little easier, you let me know. So he's, gets up, and Dick's like, now that you mention it, and the general's like, that was quick. So Dick's like, me and my pals on base, it's kind of hard to find a place to blow off steam. If you can see fit to find us someplace that maybe it don't rain on our heads, he's like, I know the boys would be grateful. And the general's like, understood. He's like, I'll see what I can do. And he starts to leave. And he's like, sir, it wasn't supposed to see us. It wasn't supposed to know. I got a feeling we keep on like we're doing, something bad is coming. Maybe we ought to just let this thing be. And Shaw like looks at him and he's like, rest up. Because he's going to keep doing it. So then we see Will and Rich are eating burgers and shakes at a diner. Will tells them a story about like the first astronauts in space or whatever, like stuff about having to pee in their suit and their whatever. Then Rich wants to talk about, it's like, who has the best tatas? He's like, but Marge has the best face. And then his musical memory, like he gets distracted or whatever. It gets interrupted by Lily and Ronnie like banging on the window. And Rich is like, what's Ronnie Grogan want with you? So they go outside. They just left their food there. It's like, did you ask for it to go? Because the burger looked really good, burger and fries. So outside, they ask Will if he can develop film, and Ronnie, she's like, with the way that he talked about the stink bomb, maybe he'd know the chemicals they need in a dark room. And Rich's like, can't you just send it out to the lab? And Lily's like, no. And he's like, can you help us or not? And Will's like, maybe, but why? And Ronnie says that they wouldn't believe them if they told him. Will's like, try me. So then we see Will and Rich later walking their bikes home, and Will wonders like why he agreed to this. He's like, I can't help her. And Rich is like, you believe her? And Will's like, I believe that she believes it. He's like, but when she asks him, it's like his mind just went blank. And Rich says, he's like, love will do that to you. And then Will's like, wait, what? He's like, Rich is like, Ronnie, you're sweet on her. He's like, I know the signs. And Will's like, there are no signs. And Rich is like, sure there are. Love can make you do some crazy things, pal. Like climb a balcony or write a poem on the inside of your shoes so no one finds out about it. And Will's like, who writes poems on the inside of their shoes? And Rich is like, just someone in love. And Will's like, okay, but I'm not in love with Ronnie. And Rich is like, whatever you say, Romeo. Then they hop on their bikes and ride off. At the secondhand store, the lady running the store, I realized at this point, okay, the lady running the store is a slingshot girl, the grown-up slingshot girl, whatever. Someone comes in and she asks, like, are you looking for anything special today? It's General Shaw. He's like, I don't know. What do you have for a nickel? And she stops what she's doing. She looks at him. She's like, Francis Shaw. So the general is the kid from the beginning, General Shaw. She's like, and he's like, has it really been 50 years? It doesn't seem possible. And she's like, no, it doesn't. And he's like, it's the oddest thing. Before I got here, I didn't remember you at all. And she's like, you really know how to flatter a gal. And he's like, I mean, I don't remember any of it. You, this town? And obviously we've heard this before in the other It books. And that. She's like, you're not the first. Derry's funny that way. No matter how long you spend here, the further away you get, the more you just seem to... It just seems all fade. Some would say it's for the best. And he's like, well, I don't know. It has its charms. And she asks, what does he remember? He says, not much. His father, life on the base, but mostly he remembers her. And she's like, it was one summer, Francis. We were 12. I doubt you even remember my name. And he's like, I didn't. Not until this week. And then he holds up a cease and desist letter. And she's like, you're in charge of the dig. And he nods. And she's like, what are you doing out there, Francis? He's like, soil surveys? We're trying to figure out where to lay pipe to bring in the water from the Kinduskiig. And she's like, and our community is concerned that your dig will disturb sacred remains. We can't allow and so he's not telling the truth. But she's like, we can't allow unmarked burial grounds to be destroyed. He's like, then let's work together. You can show us exactly what areas to stay away from. He's like, I know it might not mean much coming from a man in my position, but you can trust me. And she's like, I'd like to believe that. I will talk to the town council, no promises. And he's like, I'll be in touch. So he starts to leave, and he stops and he turns around. It's nice to see you, Rose. So he does remember her name. And she's like, you too. Then there's a flashback running through the field, splashing by water, throwing rocks in water, and all this stuff, like all this time they spent together. Then she asks him, at another point, they're sitting in this big rock. She's like, why do you look sad? And he's like, my dad just got deployment papers. We leave in the morning. And she's like, I was going to wait to give this back to you, but I think you should have it. Something to remember me by. So it's the slingshot. And he's like, you have to promise me something, okay? Promise me you'll never forget me this summer, us being friends. And she's like, Francis, you don't know this yet, but this place has a way of making people forget, even if they don't want to. So then we see the 4 kids, Will, Rich, Lily, and Ronnie. They go up to the big tower place, and Rick is impressed. He's like, I didn't know about this place. And Lily's like, it's my friend's place, their hangout, or it was. Will asks, how they can get the picture. Lily says that they could wait for it to come after them again, or maybe somehow draw it out. And Will asks, what are all the ways that this thing has come after him so far? Lily's like, Maddie, my dad, Ronnie's mom. And Ronnie's like, yeah, but it's not them. It's something pretending to be them to scare us. The right question would be, what in the hell is it? And Rich says it's a Orixa. He's like, an evil spirit. He's like, well, they're not all evil, but this one sounds pretty bad. Lily's like, how do you know? And he's like, well, I don't know for sure, but my tío was a babalao. He's like, back in Cuba, a Santeria priest. He told me whenever someone welched on him, when they didn't pay him back the money and stuff, he'd conjure this Orixa and send it after them. And the really mean ones always took the form of their dead ancestors, to really freak them out. Lily's like, and he was able to just conjure them? And Rich is like, yeah, but he had to go to the cemetery, light candles. This is the whole thing. And Ronnie's like, did he ever tell you how? So then we see Halloran. He's at Hanlon's door. He has flowers. He's wearing a suit. He gives the flowers to Charlotte and comes inside. And Hanlon looks. There's a couple of white folks staring at them as they're walking by. So it's they're probably still a little skeptical about the new family in town. So the 3 are having dinner. Dick comments and praises the cooking and stuff like that. And then he asks, he's like, "What, you don't like it much here?" Or stuff like that. And she says that it's more about the things that you leave behind. Leroy and whatever, he says that they don't. He's like, "We don't really talk about that." And she's like, "I was a history teacher," and Dick's like, "Colored school?" And Charlotte's like, "There another kind down there that would let me teach?" And he's like, "Fair enough." So Hanlon's like, "We tried to find something at a school up here, but all they had was clerical work." She's overqualified. And she's like, "There were other things, meetings, marches." And Leroy's like, "Please." And Dick's like, "The movement." And she's like, "Mm-hmm. The major's worried my activism will reflect poorly on him and his colleagues, hamper his ascent up the military food chain." And Dick's like, "I can see how that could be a concern, ma'am." He's like, "It's hard enough being colored in the service. And you got any real ambition, you're going to want your personal life to be cleaner than your uniform." And she's like, "Well, I'm not surprised y'all 2 flyboys stick together." And Dick kind of chuckles. And she says that, she's going to go get dessert started. So then Dick's like, "So where your son at tonight?" And Hanlon's like, "Will?" He's like, "You'll meet him sometime, but he's at a friend's house now." So it almost seemed like it caught him off guard. At the cemetery, Rich says that, he's like, "Oh, this camera's boss." Snaps a picture of Will. Then he takes one of Ronnie. Ronnie grabs the camera. She's like, "Don't waste the film." She's like, "We need every picture we can get." So they have candles lit, 2 circles of candles, one inside the other one. Then they said they're going to get started. Back at Hanlon's, he and Dick have a beer out on the porch. Dick says, he's like, "That was a hell of a meal." It's like, "Your wife knows the way around the kitchen." And then Leroy, he's kind of quiet, and he finally is like, "I never told you we had a son." So it's almost like The Shining all over again. So Dick's like, "Must have heard it from someone on the base." And then Hanlon's like, what happened up there? I mean, closing your eyes to look for something? What is that? So Dick's like, my grandma said it's like seeing things without seeing things. He's like, yeah, I know. Sounds crazy, right? And then Hanlon's like, place I grew up, everybody knew someone that was like that. I've just never seen it for myself. It's funny, just before you asked me about my son, I felt something. He's like, yeah, somewhere in the back of my brain, can't describe it really, other than it's the strangest GD thing I've ever felt in my whole life. And I've only felt it one other time, the night that I was attacked. You were there. And we see like a flashback. He's like, it wasn't you holding a pipe, but I know what I felt. He's like, stay out of my head. We clear? And Dick's like, mm-hmm. He's like, I will. He's like, you don't have to worry about that. And Hannah's like, well, what's that supposed to mean? So Dick's like, I've seen what men think about when they're facing death. They think about their families. They think about their regrets. But you, gun to your head, finger on a trigger, you were analyzing. You were just collecting information. It's like the part of your brain that's supposed to be afraid. It's not even there. You are not the kind of fella I'm likely to fudge with, Major. But you saved my life up in that bird, so I sure wouldn't mind having you with me in them trenches. So Hanlon's about to say something, but then Charlotte comes out asking, like, who's ready for dessert? Mud cake's about done. And Dick smiles. He's like, I would love some mud cake. And then they go inside. And Hanlon kind of like hangs back for a second. At the cemetery, Rich says, he's saying something in Spanish. He's repeating himself. Will's like, what are you saying? He's like, oh, it's a Santa Maria, prayer for the dead. He's like, now we wait. Charlotte's like, feels like we should be facing away from each other to see out, right? And Rich's like, yeah, that's what my uncle said to do. And Ronnie's like, yeah, good idea. So they turn around. Will accidentally puts his hand on Ronnie's for a second. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Because, maybe he does like her. But I don't think she minded that much. I couldn't tell if she smiled or whatever. So they're sitting for a bit. Then Rich stands. He's like, I gotta go take a whiz. And Lily's like, no, wait. I thought you said we couldn't leave the circle until it was done. He's like, no, you can't. You just have to come back quickly. He's like, my cousin told me. And she's like, you said your uncle did it. And he's like, yeah, well, but I mostly heard about it from my cousin. And Ronnie's like, you didn't hear it from him? And Rich is like, well, not the whole thing. And Ronnie's like, this is so messed up. And Lily's like, okay, we're leaving. And Will's like, hold up, guys. He's just trying to help. And Ronnie's like, making up all this mumbo jumbo. And Will's like, come on, monsters, ghosts, it's all mumbo jumbo. And Ronnie's like, so you still don't believe me? You think it's just my imagination? And Will's like, I believe that you believe it. And she like shakes her head. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't. And she starts to leave. He's like, Ronnie. And Lily's like, Ronnie. And she goes like to her bike. Lily picks up her camera. She leaves too. And Rich is like, it's just hard making friends, And Will's like, I know, man, I know. And then they start blowing out the candles. Ronnie and Lily are writing. And Lily's like, you okay? And Ronnie's like, I don't want to talk about it. So Will's like, come on, Rich. She's like, we got to catch up. So as they write off, a statue like on a tomb, I think it's like a Virgin Mary, it turns its head. And it's like, wait, was it smiling? So it's kind of freaky. Lily and Ronnie are riding towards like the exit of the cemetery gate. And then it starts getting further away, like it's stretching out. And Lily's like, are you seeing this? And Ronnie's like, something's wrong, I think. Will and Rich are like behind them. Will calls Ronnie to slow down, to wait up. But then something busts through like a tombstone as they pass. Others start like breaking, and something just pushes through the ground like in front of them. So they like turn off to the side. The ground's starting to like crumble behind them. There's someone up ahead. And Rich is like, Tio? And then it like floats up and kind of like dives, like tries dive bombing and whatever. Then it goes after Lily. She turns, it's like behind her. She snaps a picture, but then her camera gets like caught in a tree branch as she rides past. More spears starts chasing him. Will's like, this can't be real. Then there's like one right behind him. Ronnie like rides past the tree. She grabs a camera, and then there's like some singing in front of her or whatever. She snaps the pictures. Then there's like a rotting ghost like hanging upside down in front of her. She drops the camera. She tells Rich to get the camera. So he's like looking as he's writing. He sees it. Now this was kind of crazy. He manages to like lean over as he's writing, and he like scoops it up. It's like very impressive that he didn't fall over, that he could lean that far down. So he's like, I got it. But then like something's coming behind him, and there's like three ghosts or something like that. So then Will kind of smashed into a tomb. So Rich comes kind of like down this hill from above, and he drops the camera. He yells at Will. He's like, "Get the camera!" So he picks it up. The other three make it out of the gate, and Will starts to pick up his bike. But then there's like kind of like this busted mausoleum. You see like something runs by. So he decides to go in with the camera. I was like, okay, this isn't going to be good, right? And then you see like a hand or something like that, and then there's like a growl, and we see like a flash of light from like outside, and the other three are waiting outside. I'm like, okay, so we've already seen people die. We saw, Phil, Teddy, and Susie get killed in the first episode. I was like, are they really going to kill Hanlon's kid? Like, they can't do that, right? So Lily and Ronnie are holding hands, and then you see a light coming. Will's running with his bike, so he's still alive. Then he kind of like stumbles over. He gets up, and he looks back, and then to Ronnie, he's like, "I should have believed you." And she's like, "Damn right." And she gives him like a big hug, and then Rich hugs them, and then Lily hugs them all. At the high school, they sneak in through like a window. They go into like the dark room or whatever, the like photography room. Will like talks them through the directions. There's like three things: a liquid and like pans. They turn on the red light, the timer. Then they wait. First picture, they wait. It's one Rich took. He's like, "Oh wow, look at that." Next one, it's a Teddy, and the next one is Susie. And then Will's like, "This is a picture I took in the crypt." And you look at it, there's like a figure like with glowing eyes, and they're like, "What is that?" And he's like, "A clown." And that's the end of the episode. So it's like, oh my goodness, that was like a lot, but it was kind of crazy, and it's good. It's cool. I'm digging it. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Each week when this comes out. So this is good stuff. Way better than I thought. I was like, okay, they're cashing in on it. They're cashing in on Stephen King. This is just a money grab. No, they're doing good stuff here. So this is great. Okay, then we have Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake, Season 2, Episode 4, The Cat Who Tipped the Box. I have so many questions about this show, and as I watch this, I don't know if I mentioned this already last week, but I feel like as I watch this, it's like I don't know as much about Adventure Time as I thought I did. Because I've watched all the Adventure Time episodes. I've watched Distant Lands. I've seen like everything. I watched Fionna and Cake, Season 1, but as I watch, and part of it might be because I watched. I'm trying to think if I watched it more than once or not. I don't remember. But I don't know if we're just getting some random characters that appeared early on, and maybe I just forgot about them because they were only on there once. But we're getting some different characters. I'm like, who is this supposed to be? And sometimes I wonder, it's like, am I supposed to know who that is? And I just don't know. And then it's like what I was saying about like. The Super Mario Brothers stuff, where, when I was talking about the news, it's like, maybe I don't know what I did, or maybe I'm just forgetting everything. But I'm enjoying this. This show is just, it's weird. I can see how it might not be for everyone, but and it's not like perfect. I know I've been praising it every week, and there's a couple things that are just kind of like, like some of the stuff happening on Fionna World, it's just like, it feels like it's kind of dragging a bit, the whole, like what she's trying to do for this lot that they're trying to get, and, trying to get a fundraiser. And, I'm finding myself, it's like, I want to know more, like what is going on with Huntress and what's going to happen with Finn. So, yeah, it starts off, we get a narrator. He's like, once upon a time, deep in the forest dwelled an old huntsman and his wife. So we're saying, and more than anything, they wanted a family. So then we see he goes out to the forest to hunt. He sees a rabbit. He shoots it, but then he finds this green creature next to the body. He offers it some food, and it like jumps to his hand. He shows it to his wife, and it's baby Huntress. So years pass. They go hunting. She shoots a bird. It's like dinner, and the way she eats. And see, this is the thing. It's like
I don't remember like all the early appearances of Huntress or whatever. So it's like, do I not know, or am I just forgetting like all these details? But these like kind of tendrils or like roots come out of her fingers, and what she does is she kind of drains like their energy, as the stuff just like shrivels up. But then she sees them like eating and everything, and then we actually finally see her mouth opens, she chomps in to eat like the way they do. So then one night there's a storm, their hut gets struck by lightning and catches fire, so the hunter carries Huntress out, and then he goes back in for his wife, but then the house whoosh, just erupts in flame. So they both die, because then you see like after the next day there's two graves, she buried them both, and then she goes back into the forest, and then it goes to the intro. So that's basically Huntress's life. Where did she come from, for one thing? She starts having this, like a family being raised, and then they both get killed, and then she's back on her own again. So it's like, that's kind of sad. Then we see Gary and Marshall, they're shopping at like this big, like Costco or Sam's Club. I don't know if you know what that is. Just, what do they call it? I don't know if they call them big box stores, but basically where you can get like huge amounts of something for cheap prices, because you're buying in like bulk. So Gary, he has like a jar of like coins. There's a few bills on there, but he says that they need like a heap of flour, and he's looking at this fancy, like this big sack or whatever. LSP comes up to him to show like all the stuff that he swiped. So he opens his jacket, and there's like a bunch of food stuck to him, which is really gross. Like there's some like ice cream and whatever. Marshall's like, the samples are free. So Ellis goes to get more. And then Marshall like kind of grabs like a hot dog on a toothpick or whatever and eats it. So Gary, he's looking at the flour. He inspects it. It's on sale. It says it's like $90 a pound or something like that. And so is he buying like 90 pounds of flour, which it's a really big sack. But then he looks at his jar of money, and Marshall's like, maybe you can compromise on some of the ingredients. And Gary gasps. He's like, would you compromise on your sound? And Marshall's like, actually, I'm thinking of writing some new songs for the show. I don't know what about. So then Gary's like, well, you could write one about me. And Marshall's like, well, you are quite amusing. And then they smooch. I did see on Reddit, someone's complaining about like Gary and Marshall and saying how they're just so gay, which is like, yeah, duh. And they're saying how the thread ended up getting locked because it started to become very homophobic. The fact that they're gay, that is fine, because obviously Prince, Bubblegum, and Marceline, they're a couple, they're gay also. I think the bigger problem is Gary and Marshall aren't very exciting. Gary is not similar to his, like the first time we saw him as Prince Bubblegum or whatever, he was a little more, had more of a personality. He was a little more fierce. He was more, whatever. And now he's just like so soft spoken and he's just so bland. And it's just like, all the stuff about it, he wants to make this bakery and blah. It's just whatever. And Marshall's not really doing much, because Marceline has an edge to him. Marshall, he's supposed to be cool and all that, but he's doing nothing. And I don't know. I mean, maybe there's more to come, but yeah. So it's like, I don't agree with what was this rant and this Reddit thread, but I do agree that they're not as exciting. And, it seems like when they come on, it kind of slows the show down a little bit. So they're smooching, and then Marshall's phone goes off, and he's like, unknown, because it's an unknown number. He's like, hello? And then the closed caption says, it's a woman. Marshall, I heard you got kicked out of your squat. If there's anything I can do? And he pulls the phone down. He's like, geez, man. But then into the phone, he's like, sorry, can't hear you. And he ends the call. So then we see Gary is looking from the organic sack of flour to Weevil's Choice flour substitute. And there's like some like little weird thing in there. And he's like, nope, he's got to do it. So he's going for the expensive flour. They go off. Marshall comes after them, and he looks at it. He's looking at his phone, and this part I don't understand what this means. He trips over. There's like someone that's kind of bent over. They have like long hair and like a crown, and there's like one little fang sticking out. I was like, wait, is that Marceline? Because he gasps, and she kind of like frowns and nods and goes like in the other direction. But it's like, that can't be Marceline, because Marceline, he's supposed to be like the Marceline version in this world. We see the actual Marceline is on Ooh, and doesn't have that long hair. She has short hair. So I don't know what that means. Marshall catches up, and he asks them. He doesn't even say anything about like, who is this person I ran into, but he asks if they really think Fiona's plan is going to work. And Gary's like, well, if you asked me a month ago, I would have said no. But since she's been back, she's really got it together. Cut to Fiona passed out, face down on the floor, next to like a bag of chips that she grabbed when she got home. Her cell phone vibrates. And this, I think, they must have goofed up, because the closed caption said it's woman. Who the woman is Marshall's mom had called him. Because this is like, it's a woman. And I'm like, is that a woman's voice? But it's actually Hunter. Because he's like, hey, Fiona, how you doing? He's like, just want to let you know that I set up the Parks Department meeting at 5. He's like, don't be late, okay? And she's like, she like kind of groans. And she's like, time to get up. And then she like thuds, she falls over. Hunter's plant is like watching her from the pot. There's like a little like, so there's some like water in the soil. So she like reaches out with her leaf arm, whatever. She manages to get some, slurps it, and then she gets a little bigger. Fiona, meanwhile, takes a shower. She groans. She's like, today's a new day, and I have a fundraiser to organize and promote. On the radio, DJ Slime, he's mentions, last night's DJ Flame show was packed. Seems like it was just yesterday that he was doing tiny garage shows. And Fiona's like, how did he get so big? And it's almost like she's talking to the DJ, because he's like, I don't know how he got so big. Not only is he a world-class hunk, but the kid's a PR whiz. And then she gasps. And she like, spits out some shampoo or whatever, water. And she's like, I need DJ Flame. And I need to talk to him. And then the radio DJ Slime's like, keep your panties on, though, ladies. He's taken. Imitates like kissing. And Fiona's like, no, this is strictly professional. And then the DJ's like, what you can get into your panties is his latest single, which I'm giving away. Call now. And then Fiona's like, I could call him. Actually, I don't have his number anymore since I got a new phone. But I do know all his hangouts. And then the DJ's like, what are you waiting for? And she's like, nothing. And she like gets out of the shower. In Ooh, they're outside. Bubblegum takes like the gem off her crown. She sets it next to some others that she needs to open the latch to the in what is it? I totally in Chiridian. That doesn't sound right. I totally had it in my head. So the evil book that they got, she opens like the little latch thing. The gems get pulled into their slot. So we've seen this in Adventure Time before. Light shines out of it. Then there's like this little skull on the cover, starts like speaking this other language, and then disappears. And then there's like a hand on the cover, kind of scrapes across, and it's almost like black ooze covers it all. So PB brings like this big like laser thing, like kind of points it at the book and like shines. There's more light, super bright, and his portal opens up above the book. And the other princes are standing there. They're like, good luck. So PB, Marceline, and Simon go through the portal. And then we see the portal opens up outside Prismo's like floating cube thing. On the closed caption shows like, on TV, this reviewer is like, so what's the verdict? This other person on the screen says, I'm giving Prismo's Pickles an 8 or 9 on Crunch. And the first guy's like, that's an all-time high in a show. Prismo and Scarab are watching. Prismo has this big smile on his face. He's like, hell yeah, my pickles rip. So then Marceline, PB, and Simon kind of peek in a window. Marceline's like, hey. And Prismo's like, oh, look who it is. Hey, Simon. And Scarab's like, oh, yes, hey. And Simon's like, hey, Scarab. And Scarab's like, what up, man? You missed me already? And PB's like, we want to make a wish to cure Finn. He's in critical condition. Prismo's like, ugh, it feels like the time core is a couple milliseconds out of sync. Could you check on it? He says that to Scarab. And Scarab's like, yes, mighty Prismo. So then this like little like stairs like open on the wall. So he like slides down the stairs. It closes back up over him. And then now they're alone. Prismo's like, so lately I'm having kind of a wish granting problem. And he holds like his wrist, and he's like struggles to snap. He's like, "Oh, sorry guys, I got no dazzle left." And Simon's like, "What happened to you, P? You used to be magnificent." And then Scarab returns like, "You made me walk all that way for nothing." And then Prism was like, "Okay guys, you're welcome, bye." And PB starts saying, "But you didn't." And then he like sends them off. Back in Ood, the princes are putting their gems back in their crowns, whatever. They smile when they return, but then PB like sadly shakes her head, like, "No, it didn't work." Then Marston is like, "Well, I guess magic is off the table. I mean, unless you know another Wishmaster." And we see Simon's kind of like thinking about it. Cake pops in through Fiona's window. She's like, "I got your text." She's like, "Don't worry, we're good." Fiona, and she keeps like calling out. Then Huntress Plant is like watching. Cake moves like a bag like of chips or whatever. There's a mouse behind it. It like scurries off and goes behind the shelf, and Cake like licks her lips, but then shakes her head, and her phone vibrates, and she's like, "Hello." Voice is like, "Am I talking to Cake the cat?" So we see this dude like this conference room. He's got like checkered glasses. There's like coffee and donuts all over the table. There's a guy next to him he's writing on a guest list, and there's a poster of Cheers on the wall. So Cake's like, "Mm-hmm." And the guy's like, "This is GF speaking, talent coordinator for Cheers." And Cake's like, "Cheers?" And the guy's like, "Yes, the Cheers." He's like, "We were just looking at your headshots and bio." And she's like, "Are you the head writer?" And he's like, "No, I'm not the head writer. I'm the talent coordinator. And I'd like to book you for a guest appearance." And she's like, "Well, sure." He's like, "Fantastic. Can you come down to the studio right now? I'll text you the address." And Cake's like, "On my way." She ends the call. And she's like, "Everyone on TV makes big bucks. I might save the sweet spot just by being me." So she leaves. And then this a snail crawls up on the pot. And at first I'm like, is it just a random snail, or is this the snail that we've seen in like 99% of the episodes? So the snail crawls up the pot. It sees Huntress Plant, and then it licks its lips. So it wants to eat Huntress. So a few minutes later, we see the clock. It takes some time to crawl across. It's like close to her with its mouth open. It actually has these little teeth. Huntress is like leaning back. She's like trying to lean back away from the snail. She actually becomes unrooted, and she has like two legs, but she still has her leaf arms. She extends like a leg. She jabs the snail like right above the mouth, like on top of the head, and then kind of like pulls back. Then it withers, and she gets a little bigger. So the snail's dead. So it must not be the snail. And plus, it was going to eat her. The other snail is like friendly, if you know what I'm talking about. So she walks over to the hole in the wall, and she sees like a water tower on top of a building. And then the mouse comes back, and she grabs a giant needle from the sewing kit. So at first I was like, is she going to try to hop on the mouse to carry her to the water tower to get more water? But then we see Fiona walking down the sidewalk. She's thinking back to her and DJ Flame, like running down the sidewalk to his place. They're like kissing in the hall, and she like grabs his butt. So it's like, oh, Fiona. And then they go into his apartment. But then there's a condemned sign, unfit for human habitation. Do not enter, do not enter. Like all tape around there. So the place is barely standing. It's like rubbles from the attack from Scarab, whatever. And Fiona's like, oh, I guess he moved. So she keeps walking. There's a flashback to Sonic Yum music store. So I guess she worked there too. So DJ Flame Felix, he comes up and asks, or she's like, are you stalking me? He's like, nah. He's like, I come in here all the time. And she's like, I hope I don't get fired then. She will. In the present, she's looking in the window at a record store. It's empty except for like spider webs. Then there's a flashback at this carnival like boardwalk place. And this must be the first time that they met, because she just got fired for giving out too many prizes. She's taking off her apron, and she's like, the game is rigged anyways. She's like, the toys cost nothing, and I just hate to see the kids cry. And then she's like, you don't want to hear some rando trash this place. And DJ Flame's like, no. He's like, give me the dirt. And so they talk about different things, whatever. And then he's like, I know what'll cheer you up. And she's like, the Ferris wheel? Because they walk to him. And he's like, have you ever ridden it? And she's like, it's too old and rickety. He's like, come on, just give it a chance. So they ride, but then she's like, oh, well, this is not the worst view, because they're at the top. And then she introduced herself, and they didn't even know each other's name at this point. But then the operator dude, he breaks a lever. He's like trying to pull it and it snaps. So like, they must have got stuck up there for a while. In the present, there's actually a sign. It's like, have you seen this man? Or, it was like the operator dude. So he must have got in trouble for that. So she's standing in front of it. It's closed. And then off camera, she hears Fennel saying, oh no, it's closed. Bummer. So this Fennel person is with Hunter. And Hunter's like, Fiona, I wasn't expecting. How are you? And she's like, hey, Hunter. So he introduces Fiona and Fennel. So she has green hair. There's like a flower in it. And Fiona's like, hey. And Fennel's like, I love that cardigan. And Fiona's like, oh, what are you two guys doing here? And she's like, we were in a neighborhood grabbing lunch, and I thought we could go on the wheel. Me and Flame always ride it when we're here. And Hunter's like, hey, are you ready for the meeting with the parks department? And her eyes go big. She's like, oh, crap, I got to change. So she forgot about it, and she runs off. And Fennel's like, nice meeting you. Cake, she's following the directions to the studio. She arrives at On Grid Studios. The dude's there. He greets her. She shakes his hand and says, she's like, I want money. And he's like, fantastic. So he tells, it must be, I don't know if it's his assistant. He's like, this is MG. She'll show you around. So MG says that she can start practicing her line. She gives her a teeny tiny like book, like script. And Cake's like confused because it's so small. Then they go into the studio. They're like on set. MG says that the cast is very excited to meet her. So they walk up to a box, and then Cake gasps. Inside the box is the entire cheer set with like tiny people. So like Sam, Carla, Fraser, Norm, Cliff. They're all like, stretchy cat. And Sam's like, welcome to Cheers. Fiona arrives at her place. She's like, okay, got 10 minutes to get ready. No time for little Ferris wheel rides. I've got a big-ass fundraiser to throw. Ain't nothing going to stop me. And she slams her fist on the counter. And then she sees a couple of rat skeletons and a husk of one. She's like, mouse jerky. And then her hands get shot by a little piece of metal. Huntress runs out with like this makeshift bow and arrow. And she's like, what are you? It's like, oh, my God, you're so cute. And then Huntress like shoots her like in the eye. It doesn't damage it. And she's like, ow. She's like squinting for a little bit. And Huntress is also wearing like rat skin for clothing. So she ended up killing the rats. Huntress is about to shoot again, but then she falls to her knees because she's weak. And Fiona's like, oh, poor thing. She's like, are you hungry? Huntress like opens her eyes. Fiona has a sandwich. She's like, ham sando? Huntress uses her hand root like tendril things. She pulls out the slice of ham, like drains the essence or whatever. It's like all shriveled. She tosses it aside. And she grows like maybe like 4 or 5 times like larger. And her rat clothing like just like tears off. Fiona's like, whoa, you're not from around here, huh? Huntress like hops off the counter, runs out the open door. So I guess she left the door open all this time. She's like, where are you going? Outside, Huntress sees like traffic in the streets. This dog comes like sniffing up to her and it like chomps on her. So the lemon grabs, they're like walking this dog. And one's like, what did you find, baby? And then the dog's like shaking her. Fiona comes running out of the apartment. She's like, hey, stop. The woman's like, oh, he's friendly. But the teeth you see are like about to pierce like Huntress's midsection. And she can't do anything to get out. Fiona like, she's tugging at Huntress. She manages to pull Huntress out of the dog's mouth. The dog kind of, pulls back, whatever, bumps into the two, and they're like, ooh, actions will have consequences. And one kicks Fiona in the crotch, and she falls over in pain. Huntress, now she start walking into the road, and Fiona sees this gash. She's like, plant girl. Huntress like freezes, almost gets run over, but Fiona grabs her and she's like, gotcha. Whew. Huntress, she wants to be put down, but then her stomach like grumbles and she like just falls back and like into Fiona's arms. And she's like, let's get you really fed. On Simon, he flies in this big bird. Big bird with a crown. It's like, what's that bird's name? I don't remember. Obviously we've seen it this season. He goes back to the remains of the Ice Kingdom. And he's shivering. He walked past like the cell where you'd lock up the princesses and whatever. And he's like, was it always this cold? And he sees like 4 Gunters. He's like, oh, long time no see. And then they all like hiss and like wave their arms. And Simon like yelps. And then you hear like a man laugh. He's like, "Hi, Daddy," and he's like, "Hi, Gunt, Ice Thing. I came to ask you for a favor. I need the demonic wishing eye to save Finn." And Ice Thing's like, "Finn?" And Simon's like, "Will you let us use it?" And he's like, "Sure, you can borrow it." And Simon's like, "Oh, great." And he's like, "But you got to watch me first." So he starts playing his like big drum set, and he does some like scatting noises. And then Turtle Princess comes out and she's just playing the trombone. It's like she just happens to be there. I don't know. Fiona calls Cake, and Cake's like, "A tiny what?" And Fiona's like, "Look, I'll fill you in." And so she's carrying the sleeping Huntress. She's like, "Just meet me at the corner grocery store ASAP." So MG comes over and tells Cake that she's on, and Cake's like, "Be there when I can." So then they're like, take one, action. So the narrator's like, "Cheers, this film before a live studio audience." And this is the weird thing. What is the deal with Cheers? There's got to be some reason that there, there's so much stuff about Cheers. But, we did see it in season 1 where, Fiona watched Cheers a lot. So now Cake is going to be on Cheers. So Cheers is filmed in front of a large studio audience. Carla's like, "I can't believe you won the bar back." And Sam's like, "The universe must love me, Carla." And then Cake walks in. They're all like, "Cake." And Sam's like, "What can I get you?" And Cake's like, "I'll have she has to look in her little tiny script, which is like normal size because she shrank herself. And she makes her head in the shape of a screwdriver. And Sam's like, "Screwdriver." And then she looks at the script and she makes like a second screwdriver pop up like alongside of it. She's like, "Make it a double." The audience laughs. And Carla's like, "A cat who can change shapes? That's a stretch." And Fraser's like, "Can't you see that this magnificent creature is akin to the Proteus of Greek lore?" And Carla's like, "No, but I can tell you're a Greek poor." And Carla makes her, like the screwdrivers turn into like a long giraffe neck and head. And she's like, "At least I can see over the bar, Carla." And she like bends her neck to get like closer to Carla's face. And Carla's like, "Don't get bent out of shape." Everyone laughs except for Cake. Like the audience is laughing. Then he has to bend her neck to read the script. And she's like, "That's why the kids call me elongato." Wait, what? What are these? Are these all stretching jokes? And she's flipping through the script and she starts getting angry. The exec dude, he's like, "Psst, can you stretch into a dragon? I love dragons." And the audience starts chanting, "Stretchy cat, stretchy cat, stretchy cat." One person's like, "When you stretch, I laugh good." They all chant, "Stretch, stretch, stretch." Sam's like, "Give them what they want, stretchy cat." And she growls angrily and she tears the script in two and she gets big. She's like, "Fine." So she turns into this giant, like, multi-headed monster and, like, growls over the audience, knocks over the box with the cheer set. The audience is like, and the tiny actors, like, groan because they got knocked over. And then she looks down. She kind of sees, like, them as mice. She pounces on one, but then it changes. It's actually Norm. He's like, "Please don't kill me." And the audience like starts booing, and Cake runs out. Fiona is at the grocery store with little Huntress in a shopping cart. She's like, "Let's look for what's good." She grabs a pack of hams, since she seemed to like the ham on her sandwich. Huntress grabs a pack out of her hands, pulls all the meat out, and like drains it, the essence. And she grows a little taller. And Fiona's like, "Right, you love meats, I guess." So she grabs a bunch of packs of meat. Huntress, there's like a, what do you call, like, it was like a side of ham, like almost like a drumstick of ham or whatever. But she grabs it from like at a display, drains it, and Fiona's like, "Good girl." And then at first I thought this was a lady, but it's a dude because it must have a mustache. And I'm sure this is someone has a counterpart on OO. Behind Fiona, he's like, "Campbell," and Fiona screams, and the dude's like, "I thought we fired you." And she's like, "Oh, you fired me, all right." And Huntress is draining more and getting bigger. Fiona's like, "But now I'm on the other side of the register." So at this point, I was like, wait, how tall is Huntress? She's grown so much that her butt is like head level with Fiona. But it's actually, she's not that tall. She's just standing like in a food like shelf, this whatever thing. So the dude yells, "Nudie, get her out of here." And Fiona's like, "Come on, weren't you young and naked once?" So she takes off her cardigan, she ties it around Huntress's neck, and she's actually like maybe like a foot taller. So the dude like runs up, and Huntress, she like runs. I don't know what he's plans on doing. He's like running up to Huntress. She grabs and like flips him over her head. But as he's flipped over, she took his smock off of him. So he lands into this like display, whatever, and a beat rolls towards him. And Huntress' mouth's open. She's like, beat. And she thinks back to spirit water saying, follow the beat to the roots. And she's like, beat, root, beat, heart, beat. And she thinks back to the bush. And she's like, the heart of the forest is my way home. And she starts running. And Fiona like helps the dude up. And he grumbles like, you're even worse customer. Huntress runs and knocks something over. Something breaks. And Fiona's like, plant girl. And she's like, the heart of the forest. She exits the store just as Cake's like walking up. And Huntress like looks down the road. And there's like the park. And she's like, the heart of the forest. And Fiona comes out. She's like, wait up. And to Cake, she's like, follow that plant girl. And Cake's like, quest. She turns into this like giant scorpion and carries Fiona like on her back. Huntress is like jumping around. She's like, where is it? And she's like on top of she's like on the top of this tree, kind of like feeling it and everything like that. She's like, none of these. And Fiona's like, hey, what the heck are you doing? And Huntress like trying to get back to Ooh. And Fiona's like, she's like, you're from Ooh, let us help you. And Huntress like, no. And she's like, I'm calling Simon. And then this dog comes up. It's like starts squatting and like shaking, like it's gonna start pooping. And this is exactly what I thought. Fiona's like, why is this happening? On Ooh, Simon is at the theater again. Finn's up on this theater stage or what operating thing. It looks like PB and Marceline. So Fiona's like, Simon, there's someone from your world here, and she's like a shrub, if a shrub with a person. And he's like, Huntress wizard. And she yells up, she's like, Simon wants to talk to you. And then she gasps. And she's like, give it. Fiona tosses her phone up. And she's like, is Finn alive? And Simon's like, he's in a stasis for now. It's like, have you found a cure? And she's like, I'm handling it. PB walks up to him scowling. Simon's like, how did you ever get the Fiona world? He's like, Huntress? And PB's like listening, on the receiver next to Simon. And Huntress like, I can't tell you. And then PB's like, for the love of it, she grabs the phone out of Simon's hands. She's like, what really hurt Finn? And Huntress like, green wizards only. And PB's like, why are you being so cagey? And Huntress like, stay out of my way, princess. And she's like, what? Just let Finn die? Because that's what you're... And Huntress like gets angry, like grips the phone and throws it down and smashes on the sidewalk. Fiona's like, which was kind of rude that it wasn't even hers. And she breaks it. Then Huntress gets lightheaded and faints. She falls back like off the branch. So Cake runs, gets bigger and like catches Huntress. And Huntress like, I can sense this world has a heart, but it's so quiet. And it passes out. And Fiona's like, I can't believe I lost all my contacts again, because this is her second phone she lost. So PB tries calling back and gets a recording, like, your voice has been forwarded to an automat. And she's like, we can't count on her. And she hands the phone back to Simon. He puts it in his pocket, and he kind of pulls out and looks at the wishing thing that he got behind her back. Cake and Fiona are walking. Cake is carrying Huntress. She's like, did you know that the cast of Cheers is tiny? And Fiona's like, yeah, of course. Everyone on TV is like 3 inches tall. And then DJ Flame is running again, shirtless in his shorts, and she calls out to him. And he's like, hey, we keep running into each other. And she like laughs. She's like, yeah, except I was actually looking for you all day. I have something super important. I want to pick your brain about, could we grab a coffee? He's like, tomorrow I could do a late lunch. How about 2:30 at the OK Poke? And she's like, that would be great. He's like, awesome. He's like, hey, I'm going to keep moving while my heart rate's up. And he gives her a hug. And he's like, I'm glad you found me. And she's like, yeah, me too. And she blushes a bit, but now her shirt's like all wet from his sweat. So she says bye, and she turns. She's still blushing. She's like, And Cake's like frowning, and it's like scrunches her face even more. They continue walking. They're sort of going back to her place, and there's like a pile of stuff outside. She's like, I have a chair just like that. Cake's phone buzzes, and she's like, it's Hunter. It's for Fiona, because she doesn't have a phone now. So she hands the phone to Fiona, and she's like, hey, H. And he's like, where have you been? And she's like, huh? He's like, the parks department meeting. And she's like, crap, I knew I'd forget. And he's like, they heard you were running around naked in a grocery store? And she's like, that wasn't me this time. She's like, it was my new naked friend. Also, she needed my help. Also, I ran into DJ Flame, and he's like, Flame. And he's like, Fiona, I kind of stuck my neck out for you. And she's like, I'm sorry, but it was an emergency. He's like, look, I'll talk to you later. And then Huntress is like, oh, follow the beat. So they reach her apartment door. There's a sign on the door that she doesn't notice right away. She tries her keys, and it's not working. She's like, And Cake's like, what is that? And she like points to the sign on the door, eviction notice. And she's like, oh, I still have rent. And that's end of the episode. So she's getting evicted because she hasn't paid her rent. But it's like, they don't evict you like right away. They wouldn't like just clear out all her stuff and dump it on a sidewalk. I don't know, but it's a cartoon. So, so very interesting. And it's like, where is this going? The fact that they're spending like all this time on this fundraiser thing. It's like, okay, yeah. So we'll see where it's going to go. And just idea that it's like split. It's so stretched out. I don't know, but I'm enjoying it. All right, and now the movie feature is The Running Man, and I hate to say, I did not love this movie. I mean, it was okay. It's not I don't even know if I can say that. It wasn't a completely horror movie. It's an action movie. There's some cool stuff happening. There's some kind of like clever or whatever, like funny stuff. But it's just, I don't know. And part of me, okay, so yes, I'm not a Glen Powell fan, but that's the reason I'm not a fan is I feel like he's like casting everything and he's always like so smarmy or so cool or thinks he's cool, like and it could just be the character. The character in Twister, I hated that character. And sure, yeah, that character had some redeeming, whatever qualities and was trying to help and everything. But he was just annoying, just a overly cocky, whatever. And I feel like he's often like that. I could be wrong. I haven't seen everything that he's done. But I just don't really care for him. And maybe it's just a project that he's choosing. I don't know. So aside from that, obviously, because it's The Running Man, Stephen King. I love Stephen King stuff, content, whatever. So of course, regardless who is cast, I would watch it because it's based off the Stephen King novel. He recently said that he gave this some praise, saying that this is a lot closer to the actual book than the previous one. I'm like, awesome, that's great. I don't remember the story so much. It's been so long since I've read it. I'm sure that's cool. And then Edgar Wright. So I love Edgar Wright. He's done a lot of stuff. Hot Fuzz, whatever. But for me, Baby Driver. That's when I really like. Oh my gosh, I love this movie. And there are some issues with the movie. Some people involved with the movie, some of the actors, but it's such a great movie. So that makes it a little tough. Last Night in Soho. I love that movie because it was like one of those weird flip, trippy, whatever things. So it's like Edgar Wright, he tends to do like a lot of like big visuals, really stands out, and things are really kind of quirky and everything like that. This movie is like none of that. So I like if I didn't know that Edgar Wright was involved with this, that he directed this, he also worked on the screenplay. So the screenplay is by Edgar Wright and Michael Bacall, but it doesn't feel like an Edgar Wright movie. Now, what do I know? Obviously he's a filmmaker and he's going to do what he's going to do. And just because he's done things a certain way doesn't mean he's always going to do it that way. And this movie may not necessarily call for that. But I would think in some ways you would want the big visuals and stuff for this. Now, I'm kind of going all over the place now. Did I just say that? The other day, Monday, I think it was last Monday, I watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. I was like, okay, before I watch it, I'm going to take the time and watch it's been so long since I've watched The Running Man. And as I watched it, I'm like, wow, this doesn't really hold up. And part of the problem with the original Running Man is it feels very dated. It's supposed to be like in the future, but a lot of stuff looks very cheap. And whatever, it's just because of it was made in the 80s and maybe it's a budget, whatever. But like some like stuff, it just looks like plastic, and it's just whatever. The other thing in the movie, there's so many horrible lines in the movie, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger making his whatever quirky, clever comments, whatever you want to call it. But some of them are they're so bad. And as much as I love a good dad joke or whatever you want to call it, these are just so bad. And just like, the acting is it's just like all over the place. Because that's just what it was. And after I watch it, I'm like, there's a reason I haven't rewatched this movie in, decades or whatever. It's like, it's not a great movie. And it was fine. So with that, it makes me wonder, did they like purposely try to make this movie like cheesy or whatever? Because whatever my issues against Glen Powell, whatever, he can act. Like that movie, I forgot what it's called, where he was like the hitman and everything. Was it called The Hitman? I don't know. He can act. And he I from what I recall, I didn't pay too much attention to him. He was fine in Top Gun Maverick, right? He was in that. So he can act, he can deliver. But sometimes the way he was delivering his lines, and it makes me kind of feel, because of everyone involved, because of his track record, and because of like Edgar Wright and his awesome directing and everything, I almost feel like, was he telling them to make it like over the top, like just loud and cheesy, and just, it was like bad reading. And I don't know if that was intentional. I mean, maybe that was. It's like, okay, we're gonna modernize this movie a lot, compared to the original, but we're going to make it kind of have the same vibe and be cheesy or whatever. And it was I don't know, it was just bad. The dude who plays like the game show host, I think it was Daniel Ezra. So I'm trying to think if I know him from everything. I found his character just annoying. Josh Brolin was fine. He had cheesy dialogue, but I feel like he delivered it like as he should. It wasn't like over the top or whatever. It was just kind of ridiculous stuff because of the character and everything. But then there's a character, Emilia Jones. She was in Lock and Key. I really enjoyed the Lock and Key Netflix show, the Joe Hill comic, whatever. And she was really good in that. And her character here, it was very limited. And again, the way she delivered her lines, it's almost like, can she act? So I feel bad for her, because if people didn't watch Lock and Key, if they had no idea who she was, they're gonna be like wow, she's not that great of an actress, and she is. So it was weird that it was just. I honestly wonder if they're like, let's make this cheesy and bad. Because it didn't seem like as slick as you would expect. It was just like, wow. And the story, the premise of the story is Glen Powell. He's married, has a daughter. Not a lot of options in where they live. He had this job, but he's basically become blacklisted because he was talking to like a union rep, whatever. They're like health, radiation, whatever stuff. And his daughter's like sick, has like so he needs money for medicine, and he can't get a job and everything. So then there's like all these game shows you can go on, and he's like, well, I'm going to try for a game show. Running Man is like huge payoff. But the idea is you have to survive for a month, and basically everyone's hunting you, or if people see you, they report you, and there's these hunters that actually are out trying to kill you. So, it's super dangerous. No one, I think one person only made it to like 29 days or something like that. People get killed. And a lot of it's just like, it's just so cheesy the way it is. And like the other characters, it's almost like they don't care about anything. The way it all goes, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to describe. And it was just disappointing because I feel like, whether it's just I had high expectations, but it's like, no, I'm surprised that the Rotten Tomatoes as of now is at 64%. That seems kind of high. I mean, compared to like some other stuff that is, I felt, and again, my opinion, other stuff that I felt has been better than this has been lower. But this is just, it was just very disappointing. And I feel like we could have had more. And I haven't seen any interviews or read any interviews. So I don't know what it is. And I feel bad. And one, I don't want to, be negative about anything because I know there's a lot of work and I know I couldn't do better. But the other thing, because I have respect for Edgar Wright, I don't want to be saying it's like, oh, he's trying to make it. I mean, why would you want to make? I feel like whether I don't know, is he trying to go for like a cheesy, over the top, like 80s vibe? It's just I question that decision, and I don't feel like I'm in a position to even comment on that because what do I know about directing a movie or anything? But it's just like, wow, it was just yeah, I just was very disappointed. And I don't know. Yeah, so let's see, box office. Wait, the budget was 110 million, which seems kind of low. Okay, but 110 million, and it made 1.9 million on Thursday box office. It's opening up against Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which I haven't seen any of those movies, so I'm not going to be talking about that movie. And I heard it wasn't like great. It's expected to make 23 to 25 million opening weekend. So that's why when I said earlier, there's probably not going to be a sequel because it wasn't like the big smash that they probably would have hoped for. Let's see, 64% and 192 critics reviews are positive. Consensus read, Spirit leap sprinting through grim source material. Edgar Wright's The Running Man doesn't live up to the director's high bar for inventive action extravaganzas, but maintains a slick stride. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned a score of 55 out of 100 based on 51 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. And yeah, I just I don't know. Stephen King saying it's fantastic and a bipartisan thrill ride. Maybe I missed something. So I don't know. Maybe, watching it a second time, which I don't want to do anytime soon. Maybe watching it again, I might appreciate it a little more. But yeah, I'm just really disappointed because aside from Glen Powell, I mean, if it would have been great, I'd be the first to say I was wrong. He did a great job. I don't know if anyone really did a great job, and I think it's because of just the writing and I don't know if it's the directing. They were meant to be like that. So like after I saw the movie, they had the like little mini posters. I was like, oh, this is kind of a neat poster because there's some cool designs for the different posters they had. And I have a few in my room. Like I have, where is the one? I'm trying to think where it was at. I had like a Quiet Place Day One poster. I have Top Gun Maverick, and I have Mission Possible 7, I think the first one, whatever. Or was it the last one? No, I think, whatever. So I grabbed one. I was like, oh, cool. But it's like, I don't know if I want to put it up. Because, I don't know. I'm just so bummed. And, like I said, I don't want to be negative. The other thing, like, just because I don't like it doesn't mean you won't like it. I'm not saying don't see the movie. Just know what you're getting into. And I say this all the time. regardless, whoever you listen to, know your reviewers. If you follow certain people, if you are listening to my show week by week, you know what I like, you know what I don't like. And there's going to be some things that you may agree with, there may be some things you don't agree with. So you know, if I like a certain thing, you have an idea what that means. If I don't like something, you probably have an idea what that means. So, yeah, take this whatever grain of salt, however you want to do this. But yeah, so I'm bummed because after I watched it, I was just like, wow, because yeah. And I'm just baffled. I don't know if it's supposed to be like this or what's going on. And and I wonder, is it just me? But I don't think it is. I don't know. So there you go. If you watch it, let me know what you think. I know my buddy, he didn't like it either. He saw it after. But yeah, so that is Running Man. I wish I had something more positive to say, but yeah. So I'm really bummed. I was hoping it could have been better. Hopefully you liked it more than I did if you saw it. But hopefully you are still listening to this. That is going to be the show for this week. So I appreciate you making it this far. Well, let's call it now. Put the fork in it. Big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I've been kind of like on this classic what if. What am I looking for? Not run. No, that's not what I've been doing what ifs. And actually, I was thought when I started the show, I was like, because I have an off my mind idea I'm kind of tempted to talk about. I don't know if it's like a 30-minute topic thing, and I don't know if it's some. I've talked about similar things, and I don't know if it's just I don't want it to become too redundant or annoying. But I don't think I've dwelled so much on this aspect that I'm thinking of dipping into, and whatever. And since I don't script them, I don't know if it's like going to be like 17 minutes or whatever of content, and I'd rather it be 30 to make it worth your time. But I'm thinking because of what the next what if issues, I'm kind of excited for that. So we'll see about that. But if you can't commit to monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. So what are we going to have next week? Next week, the movie feature is Wicked. Wicked for good. For what? Wicked for good. And then we're going to have Adventure Time, Welcome to Derry, Pluribus, all that stuff. And so will I have time to rewatch Wicked? I don't know about that. I should try to do that. We'll see. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourself. I hope you are finding time to do fun things. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.